All right. Welcome back. I forgot to change the ticker. So we're going to cheat and just say welcome. We're not going to type out all that crap. Welcome to the aftermath of the Super Bowl with Russ and Rob. And honestly, we're both Niners fans. We both, let's just face it, love watching Mahomes. The guy's incredible. I was blown away by the coaching from Andy Reid and Spagnuolo to end that game. That was, I think coaches should study that tape. So there's obviously a lot to talk about. Rob, how you feeling?
As we talked last time, a couple weeks ago, I didn't think the Niners were going to win. Although ironically, right before the game, I was at church. I don't know where I was, but I was like, man, I think they could if they run the ball effectively on the Chiefs, even though I think the Chiefs played coy in their playoff games of what they were taking away, as we had talked about through text, that I'm like, man, they might be able to do it against them because if they can run the ball,
Right.
their offense is pretty nasty to where even if you have good athletes like they have with McDuffie and Snead as corners, Reid is a pretty good safety. They have a good couple of linebackers and obviously 95 in the middle. I'm always forgetting his name. He's a stud.
Chris Jones?
Chris Jones. I was thinking
Yeah,
Smith,
oh,
and I
dude.
knew it wasn't Smith.
He single-handedly
But
stopped a couple touchdowns.
well, he's been super instrumental in all of their wins. But when you can run the ball, like it diffuses his capability, right?
Right.
Because now you're pushing their team around, and then the play action is great, and you don't have to have your wideouts play these. Excuse me, I'm burping, eating food here. These amazing routes. They just have to be effective enough because it will be one-on-one coverage. The linebackers won't be dropping back. So, but yeah, they ran the ball okay.
Yeah, 3.6 yards, which is,
I mean,
it's not terrible, but...
He ended with 80 rushing yards.
Right.
So, and what was it with, how many carries did he have? I thought it was like 17.
I got it up. I'll look for you real quick. 22 carries.
22 carries. So, yeah, I mean, I thought he ran it somewhat effectively.
Well, I think the tail of the game, ironically, was the things I've been talking about literally all season. And I was telling Dad this. We were kind of going back and Marco. We kind of bombarded Robbie. I'm so sorry. I've been saying all year that, and it's not news to anybody, and what's frustrating is how little people seem to actually do their research before they start commenting. And I'll be honest, I sent Rob and Dad texts, and even Rob was like, okay, calm down. But 9 free rushers on Purdy, most in that Super Bowl history. I already talked about it. Chris Jones single-handedly stopped multiple touchdowns. Weird ones, obviously, is like Christian McCaffrey fumble, 3 false starts, a hold on Trent really on Purdy because he rolled out to that side. But it was all the things I already knew that the Niners struggled with, which is a pure drop-back game, getting out of play action, a weird amount of empty, and then also going to condensed sets and having no answer for the blitzes that you knew Spags was going to be throwing at you. Those are all the things I was afraid of that reared their ugly head. So, and I don't want to take anything away from Mahomes. The thumbnail from this video is, do we have a new GOAT? I think it's a reasonable discussion. But I think Spagnuolo absolutely should get credit, and the GM, because if you watch film of those corners playing tough on Debo and Ayuk, they were nasty. And if you're going to not, and I was fine with it, by the way, I'm not complaining. If you're not going to call a really physical game, that's really going to benefit the Chiefs defense, because I love Debo. He's not a great route runner. He's not a very good, just straight up wide receiver. And Ayuk isn't the strongest guy in routes where he can get off a cornerback like that. So there were all things that I was like, oh, this is going to be the problem. And they were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely came down to them making some huge plays.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because, some of the commentary is that Purdy got him. It's if you've listened to Overreaction Monday with Rich Eisen, it's real fun. Chris Brockman comes out with just outlandish overreactions, and Rich is so steady that he unfortunately very, very rarely thinks it's not an overreaction. It's pretty much always an overreaction to him. And I'm like, I'm a pretty steady guy, but
I
I
feel
don't feel
like
like that's
he would say putting too much butter on toast is an overreaction. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
He's so like, I don't think his heartbeat. I think his heartbeat's a flat line. The dude is just like
Yeah.
never gets up, never gets down. It's nuts.
Yeah. So one of the things he was saying it was which we had talked about of like do the Niners need a new quarterback or whatever? Because Purdy got him as far as Jimmy G. And the result looks very similar.
Right.
Unfortunately, the ironically the team, the actual Chiefs team defensively is way better. Their offense isn't as good. Do you remember the score to the last Super Bowl?
It was 31-20.
So we allowed more with a better defense back then,
Right.
and we scored less on a worse defense. So if you just metric it that way,
Right.
and Purdy didn't really miss Debo, right? If we're talking about the McDuffie play,
Mm-hmm.
I tell this to you all the time, and to Dad, and any wide receiver that'll listen. Obviously, it depends on the certain thing, the route, how they've worked it out, but almost always it's far more effective, especially as a smaller guy. Whereas Debo's not some Calvin Johnson get over the top. Even an Ayuk would be a little bit more springy type of guy. You have to create space with your body. So if the ball's here, or going to be here, you can't be right here.
Right.
You have to be right here, so then the defender's right there. So even if they jump, then you have that room to close. And obviously, it was a great pass. It was like up the middle of the field, so it is
Yeah.
kind of hard to see the ball. But all that to say, if Debo does it that way, or just goes and gets it, like that's one or the other. Create the space so it's out here, or go and then high point it so his tip doesn't matter. You're getting the ball. I thought that was a great pass, but it's like clearly, even if you are a Jimmy G like supporter, Purdy was way better
Yeah.
than Jimmy.
Well, and it was a weird.
You could tell from the beginning Purdy was
100%.
on, and
He started
the team,
7 of 8.
Yeah, and I think it ended up being like 11 of 15 or something, and had like a ton of yards.
Yeah.
But a fumble. The funny thing with football, as always, it matters when you make the plays and when you make the third downs. A team could be 50% on third down, but every drive they get a first down, and then they go then they have to punt. First down, 4 and out. You could have a really good third down conversion, and you actually don't make it anywhere. It matters if you have a first down, a first down, a first down, a first down, because then you either get a field goal or a touchdown. Instead of like they got a bunch of first downs, but they didn't punch it in enough.
Yeah, 3 for 12 on third down for the Niners. Well, which, by the way, Kansas City, to your point, was 9 of 19. But in the second half, I guarantee they were doing way better. And what's weird
in the fourth quarter, especially.
Oh yeah, they just boy did they dice, and we'll get to that. But still on Purdy, what was weird is Kittle lost a ball, and that wasn't a particularly great throw, but he looked lost. Ayuk stopped on another route, and then of course the one that Chris Jones blew up. Purdy had to rush the throw, and what bothers me so much is then they'll like compare that to the Jimmy G throw. It's like at some point your best QB, which by the way Mahomes missed some throws under pressure. That's how you beat Mahomes. So to assume your QB is going to make every throw under pressure is just not only not reasonable, it's just not possible. And what's actually really confusing to me is the Niners' identity is that play action, and then through the playoffs we went empty all the time. And I was like, well, this is not what we're particularly good at. We don't have a particularly strong O-line against the pass. We don't have a particularly creative or modern drop-back game. I don't feel like I get it. You have that, and people say he doesn't trust Purdy. He threw 39 times in the rain against the Packers. He clearly trusts Purdy.
He put the ball in his hands. He put the ball in his hands like 6 straight times. He trusts. He clearly thinks Purdy can get it done.
Yeah, but then you didn't. And this isn't me. This is just again, I've been a complete film junkie this season because I didn't want to repeat my Jimmy. I thought Jimmy G wasn't good, but I didn't know why. So I didn't want to repeat that. I want to be like, let me actually watch people who know what they're talking about. Kurt Warner. Go ahead.
We all know why Jimmy G wasn't good. Remember what I always say about him?
Mm-mm.
What does he do when he throws a pick? Right before he throws a pick.
Happy feet? I don't.
Closes his eyes and prays. That's what he does. Every time. Every time he remember the Packers game where he threw 8 times and still almost threw a pick? He literally was running to the right and went and almost hit the guy in the hands.
Well, and that's actually that did actually get picked because it was to Kittle, and I had said that's a throw.
Oh, that was the pick. Yeah. That did get picked, huh? Yep.
That was a throw before his injuries. I actually think he can make, but his brain never caught up to the fact his body was like, we can't do this anymore, dude. This isn't possible. We don't have the arm strength. We literally can't make this throw.
When he had a clean pocket for the Debo throw, right?
Oh,
if I remember right,
to Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah,
Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, same difference, right?
I mean, honestly, that's a really similar guy.
But Emmanuel Sanders is probably a better route runner, though.
Anybody who's reacting to the Super Bowl is going, Purdy's the problem. First of all, that's just insulting to Spagnuolo because Spagnuolo coached a great game. He did. I mean, he's the only defensive or offensive coordinator to win 4 Super Bowls. He's a stud. He is so good at his job. It's so frustrating to me after these Super Bowls. It'll be like, Mahomes beat Purdy. Well, first of all, they didn't actually play each other.
They didn't play each other. Mm-mm.
And give credit, first of all, to Andy Reid. His last couple series were spectacular. The quarterback runs, the blitz on 3rd and 4 we'll get to because that was incredibly bad. But Mahomes was ready. Andy Reid had the perfect play dialed up for it. Every step of the way, he was out coaching Wilkes. So I have zero problems with how Purdy played. I thought he did great. And I know enough film to say the Niners offense is not built to have answers to interior pressure because they don't, for whatever reason. I don't know why. It blows my mind. We don't do hot reads. We literally don't. I don't know why.
And we can't. We don't have enough time.
Yes. What I'm meaning is built into the play call. If this guy, like those choice routes, if this guy blitz, this guy do this. But to actually elaborate on that, Rob, because we talked about this. The way Shanahan coaches doesn't allow a quarterback to have tools.
Well, so people would have to go to, the mic'd up or whatever, or any of those NFL films things where the play call. So when you call a play, so in high school we had certain ones that, not my high school when I coached, and I was not the offensive coordinator or did any of that, but you would usually do a concept and formation and direction. So you could say trips, but it's trips right, flood, meaning you got 3 wide receivers on the left, and basically they're all doing some form of an over type deal, whatever. We called it Florida. So Florida was flood. So in high school where you run kind of the same plays because high schoolers aren't watching film to the same level that pros are.
Well,
you don't have to mix things, especially at the level. We were 3A. Arizona goes up to 6A. So at 6A, they might be doing some of that stuff where they run, the same play out of trips, twins, bigger package. They might be running it out of lots of things so then they can get the look that they want or whatever. But in the NFL, they're able to do that. In high school, you just say Florida. What was the other one? Rugby was a rub play.
That mesh concept?
We had mesh, but did we call it that?
Sorry.
Anyway,
I know rub and mesh are really similar. They're very similar play calls to get those pick
so
rights.
Rugby, I believe, was a quick out and a slant. So the right side, the slot would do an out and then a slant. So whichever one, especially if they're cover 3, right? The flat either has to go out or sit. So if he doesn't go out, the out's open. If he does go out, the slant's open. You do that on both sides. As we talked about with Kurt Warner, you just pick a side.
Real quick, at some point, if I can get it working, our plan because we love this stuff, is actually Kurt Warner some awesome videos on pure progression that we were having fun reacting to and being like, okay, what would we do? So the likelihood is we'll probably react to that stuff and kind of go through it, just because it's interesting. It's interesting to see kind of what quarterbacks are going through.
And I still don't like Kurt's what he changed, because I don't think it actually solves the safety issue. But that's whatever. I didn't win Super Bowls or win Super Bowl MVP,
hey, listen,
but
guys can still be wrong. That's okay. And who knows? There's the weird that we ran into kind of reacting a little bit to his videos is like he's not fully going into detail on then what the defense does. So it was a little kind of like, okay, but I don't know what he's assuming is going to happen. So it's an interesting thought.
He's going off base rules, right? Instead of like Spags. It again, to relate it, I'll get it back to the play in a second, because we had talked about Bosa crashing.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we talked through Marco, like if you have a read option team, whether they throw a lot or not, you usually will say, you'll tell your D end to pretty much always do this.
Right.
That way the defense just knows he is always getting quarterback. Everyone else is responsible for running back. Okay? So then there's none of the big plays. So there's some defensive rules there that Warner might not have been discussing. So to get back to it, in high school we might say trips right, Florida, and that's it. Right? That's what we have. And then so we'll line them up over there, and then you can kind of see what's going on. And then if you need protection, you can either move the running back, and we would say Ricky or Ligma. Ligma, because it's inappropriate. But awesome. that was our offensive line coach. So if no one knows that, don't look it up. Just have someone tell you what it is. But so right, shift the protection right or left. So everyone needs to slide one way, and then we'll have, whether it's a running back or whatever, right? Then we're set. When it's the Niners, and I really recommend trying to find some video of this, guys, if we don't end up showing it at some point, if you find one in a future episode, Russ. He will basically say everyone's route, essentially. And then, so, if there's motion, there's X jet. So the X receiver is jetting across right before the snap. Okay? And you might still have a motion before that. So you might go, I don't know what they call their tight end, but, let's just say Y motion, X jet, and then you start saying all these other routes. And then by the time you get through X slant, Z go, Y out, whatever. What would be the other X, Y, Z? I don't know if I said Z, but then there's usually another one. You might say H or a T or whatever. Corner. By the time you end up saying all that, and then what the protection is, you are going out. Okay, now you say you have 12 seconds. All right, Y go across. Well, Y might be over here. Kind of depends on what you say. Y motion, and then you got to go, X jet, and you got to wait for him to get there. And then that's like a distinct play call that only does that. And Shanahan has a lot of those where it is a distinct play call, where there's counters within the play, as we saw with the Jennings throw to McCaffrey. They do double screens often, right? So if you don't like one, you can look at the other, right? Which really challenges the defense. But he doesn't have it to where I see this, none of it's going to work. What do I do now?
Yeah, he doesn't have time.
That's really the biggest problem, because, like we had talked about, maybe at best 9 seconds. I think most of the time they were probably 7 or 6 seconds, and then they're hiking the ball. Well, I don't care how smart Purdy is, and I'm not a Purdy detractor, but I've been slow on him because he's young.
Also for good reason. You should really give a quarterback 3 years before you, outside of Mahomes, because he's won 3 Super Bowls in 3 years. I'm half joking. It's not quite. But usually it's about 3 years, really, to get to the point that you're like, okay, I kind of know what we're getting with this quarterback in the NFL. That's how long it normally takes.
Yeah, you're not just Russell Wilson doing what you're supposed to on a really good team.
Right.
And maybe he is a Russell Wilson. That's cool. Russell Wilson might be a Hall of Famer, but right before we anoint him, it's like, hey, he's got some really good qualities. But when you have 7 seconds, the first thing he's got to do is read the defense,
Right.
to see what they're doing. So then he knows where he was probably looking to throw. Like what defense are they in? He has to think, what are we running? What defense are they in? And then who am I going to look for and where? And then my drop. Oh, hike. We don't even look at the protection. So some of that, as he gets better, he might just know that right away. Whatever they call for shift in the line. But Romo made mention to it several times, and it is certainly because Purdy's young,
Yeah.
but he also doesn't have time. Mahomes has a year and a half on purpose. You see him on the sideline. It almost annoys me. He's like, come on, give me the call so we can – he's almost like, I don't care what the call is. Let's get it out there so that we can figure out what they're doing and then change as needed.
Well,
He's much more of a – I heard some – I'll shut up for a minute. But Bradshaw did this I may have told you over Marco.
he calls his own plays.
He called his own plays in the huddle.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, Lynn, what do you want to do? And then I forget, what's that? Stallworth. Lynn Swan and then John Stallworth. John, what are you running? Okay, all right. And then they're just going. Like, that is him and Brett Favre just –
Backyard football.
We're doing this over here. We're doing this over here. Let's run it, So I think Pat would rather that at times compared to – I think Pat would probably struggle. Not like he wouldn't do well. He just would hate it. It's like you got that great teacher and you just don't want to do things for him because they're an a-hole.
Well,
That's
I've
maybe
been
Shanahan
telling you, I've been reading that take your eye off the ball 2.0. Did not know this. If you're in a West Coast offense, you call, like you said, everything. Other offenses won't spell that out. As we were talking about, X post. That's all they'll say. Then that's much shorter. They'll just be like X do post, but like in West Coast, they spell out the whole thing. And it's so annoying to me kind of reacting to this is I've noticed Shanahan, because of how good he is in play action and that he almost gets this pass. Uh-oh. Robbie's frozen.
Am I not there? Oh.
You're staring a hole into my soul.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
No.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, though?
I have an idea.
All right.
I have an idea.
Should I just close my eyes?
You're
turn off my video?
Oh, man, that's funny. So what we're going to do, I'm going to hide you on stream for right now. I'm going to keep your camera open while well, actually, you know what? This is funnier. We'll leave you open. Keep talking. Can I hear you? Are you there?
Hello? Am I here?
You're here. You're just frozen. So let me talk, and we'll
Okay.
hope this fixes itself. Because the best you could probably do is turn off your camera, turn it back on.
I tried that.
Well, we'll roll with it.
I'll just leave it off for a minute and let it struggle. They're like, who is that guy talking? Where is he coming from?
That's amazing. But that's the beauty of a podcast is who cares about our faces. But on the Shanahan thing is he is notorious for the long play calls because it's a West Coast offense. He doesn't bake in the ability for his quarterback, and it's on purpose. He has minimized the quarterback position on purpose. So in his mind, if they run my plays and they run my offense, that is what we need. Rather than Andy Reid, who's very big on, let me empower my quarterback, let me give him the most tools, give him the time at the, before he even goes under center to actually evaluate the defense. So it's frustrating when people are reacting to Purdy and acting like he's the problem when the tools aren't even in the offense. He isn't allowed to change protection. Hey, he's back and he's not frozen. He isn't allowed to change protection. He isn't allowed to do all those things. And then people are like, well, Purdy should have done this. Literally, he is not able to. So maybe he needs to ask. I mean, that's the other part. He's a first-year quarterback. What he's supposed to go do? Tell Shanahan, please change everything you've been doing? And this is why I'm so curious in this offseason. Shanahan absolutely has to focus on, I need to empower my quarterback. Not just letting him throw the ball. I need to give him the tools, the hot reads, the ability to look at protection, the time to look at protection. Will he? I don't know. It all depends on if he thinks any of this is even a problem. You know what I mean? If he doesn't think it's a problem, who knows if he's going to even think he needs to change?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because you can't just have him start making some plays that it's like just memorize this stuff.
Sure.
But if they only have 35 plays, you can come up with your names for those things. You know, like I said, we had Florida, we had rugby, we had
well, it's not even
mesh. We did have mesh too.
It's not even changing the play. Actually, it's just shortening how Purdy spells it
right.
out.
You just name it. So again, Florida was a flood. Not only does Florida have lots of water, but it's FLO. So it's like the name makes sense. Mesh also makes sense because there's going to be a rub. Rugby, kind of the same thing. And then we had like rugby smash, which was a play off of that. So it's almost as if he needs to just see someone else's offense, how to simplify some things because, I mean, I know you, in a good way, like this is why we balance each other, you are highlighting the things he's not doing that he needs to be doing. Because you probably, I'm sure you did watch more Niners games than I did. But I will also say, and you'll agree with this, and I don't
100%.
necessarily disagree with what you're saying, he's been to 2 Super Bowls.
Yep,
with
absolutely.
A first-year full-time starter. And possibly would have went last year with, you know, essentially the Mr. Irrelevant backup.
Right.
And then with Jimmy G, who, yeah, we did think he was good, but we very quickly saw he was very limited.
100%.
And then obviously he went as an OC with Matt Ryan, who we all thought like, dang, that guy's pretty good, but he was never like better than Phillip Rivers. Like I think we both like Phillip Rivers. That dude's a baller.
Yep.
But Matt Ryan has an MVP and went to a Super Bowl, and you know Phillip Rivers hadn't, so or still hasn't at this point, I guess. So it's tough because all of his success boils into how he reacts.
Right.
But then some of that it's almost like he needs to talk to Andy Reid because Andy Reid only went to 1 Super Bowl, didn't win it, and lost 4 other NFC Championship games. Those were 5 in a row. People forget. Right. And it's like that's a lot of success. And yeah, you're not having the ultimate success, but if you would ask the Bears, the Lions, Arizona, obviously Arizona did end up having a Super Bowl or whatever, went to a Super Bowl, but like you ask a lot of these teams, the Browns, the Bengals went recently, but have sucked like you start talking to these teams, they're like, you know, there's always the people, well, we didn't win, so it doesn't matter. It's like, we had a freaking successful year. I know it sucks to say, we were the second best team in the best league ever in existence.
Yeah.
Now we should have won, you know, you could argue that.
Well,
so
let's face it too.
It's hard. It's difficult.
He loses by 3. If we don't have the muff punt, do they win? Blocked extra point. You know, actually, I didn't know this. Technically, the Chiefs had 7 fumbles. Because whether drop snaps, all that crap, and only 1 got lost. Yeah.
Well, the drop snaps are never going to be fumbles because Mahomes played baseball and he has.
Oh yeah. I'm just meaning like if you look at that.
But Rashee Rice did fumble. He did not toss it to the guy. He definitely fumbled.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
You know, there was certainly mistakes on all sides. It was quite a sloppy game. It was a good game to watch, I feel like, in the sense of there was this constant struggle to me in my mind when I was watching it. I was like, man, is Mahomes going to do something? You know, are the Niners going to, like, there was just this kind of churning kind of in there.
There was
something
a feeling
was going
of
to happen.
despair growing in me when I realized we were not running up the score enough to give ourselves breathing room. And I was like, listen, it's the same Brady problem to you know, when we talk about is Mahomes the new GOAT, is like, okay, you can't just expect him to only score 3 points. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I even said you can't expect to beat them only scoring 22 points, really, unless you were really
Right.
running the ball and draining that clock, which also people forget. Towards the end of the game, Purdy had like a 7-minute drive. I think it was even in overtime. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Because they didn't get the ball until like they took both teams took up half of the quarter
correct.
essentially.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
there's a little bit of weirdness, and these are the things too. I was telling Dad this is Shanahan is a great coach. He's just you don't get to be excellent, unfortunately, until you win a Super Bowl. That's just how it is, unless you can show that you're the only reason they keep making it, right? Where you're like, man, this coach is just completely overachieving with these players, which the Niners are
Yeah.
loaded, so you can't. I mean, he is getting a lot out of them, and people are also being like, he needs to be fired. It's like, no, let's definitely not go there yet. That's really stupid.
I,
Go ahead.
until we miss the playoffs, I don't think he or it's like a first round bounce a couple times, then maybe he goes, but the dude's been to what, 4 NFC championship games?
Yeah, he's dominated the NFC. That would be
He's
stupid.
been awesome.
That would
Like
be real
the,
dumb.
yeah, so he's gonna go somewhere else. He'll go to the Commanders and just start lighting us up. Yeah,
The only way, and again, I get it. This has happened in the past. Dungeon into Gruden, Dungy into Gruden. Eagles did it. I mean, they didn't win, but they went from Doug Peterson to Sirianni. There's a couple others off the top of my head. I used to know these. Now, do I think that's the same situation with Shanahan? Absolutely not. I'm completely with you. I don't. I think that'd be really colossally stupid to get rid of Shanahan because there's nobody out there that is going to be better than him. What you need, what?
this would not work
Are you gonna say Belichick?
because you put Shanahan as OC, demote him for a little bit. Because Bill is the best at time management. He's best at
100%.
all of our guys would have known the rules for overtime and whatnot.
Yep.
Bill takes over the defense because I think Wilkes actually did a decent job for the majority of the game.
Yes. No. Completely agree. Completely agree.
I thought he coached his butt off. Now, do I want him back? Probably not, but
Well,
you know.
real quick on that.
But Belichick would be that would be I mean,
sick.
the maybe best defensive mind ever with
Right.
the hot new offensive mind, and they just mind meld because then he might get rid of like Kyle. I wish I could do the Julian Edelman voice of what are you doing? Get a back there so at least we think you're running. Because I don't think we do any read hand like.
No.
Not run pass option, but in the sense to where Purdy would also run. But I don't think we have anything from the shotgun, right? Why do we not? Just fake it. I don't even care if the line moves. At least get them just that. Anyway, go ahead with the Wilkes thing.
Well,
I think it'd be fun with Belichick.
I'm actually okay with Wilkes coming back because I don't know how much was him versus still trying to be like, I'm trying to run your guys' system with another year and a full offseason. Because literally he came in and then they're like, you're not running your system, which is a weird way to hire someone, by the way.
Well,
That's
yeah,
really
you
strange.
probably shouldn't hire that guy, but also the amount of people that are like, hey, my system's the best. And you're like, Bosa and Young are not going to be the ends with one middle. We don't have a Lodi Nada or whatever.
Right.
No, we need another tackle, D-tackle in there,
No, I
So,
agree.
I don't-
and that's
yeah.
always been the tension. And that's why I'm curious I actually do think this offseason is going to be interesting. Because another offseason with Wilkes, because the cornerbacks did improve. Now it's, hey, Wilkes, you need to improve with our front seven. I mean, the fact that he didn't pull out of that blitz on 3rd and 4 blows my mind. You just gave the easiest read.
I don't even know why we should have, like, the type of team that we have, we should never run a cover zero.
Completely agree.
There's never a point that I think cover zero is unless it's because like Jared Goff historically is like Bambi legs once everyone
Terrible
blitzes,
on the run. Awful.
Right, but he's also really smart and like has Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Um, we don't have the corners for that. I
Right.
don't, as great as Ward is, I think Snead's the best corner, not him. I don't think he's even in top five.
Completely agree.
You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
people throw to, well, they don't throw to him a ton because we got Brown and literally any one of our other corners are like, hey,
Lenore is
just
good. Ambry Thomas, like, hey, have good luck in your future endeavors.
right. I'm not worried about Lenore though.
No, I agree. No,
Right?
no, no, 100%.
Comparatively, I might be more worried about Ward, but because I think he
Yeah.
got first team, did he not?
So it's weird because he is really good, but he's also kind of again, it's the same problem, kind of almost when we're discussing Purdy, is how much is them and how much is what they're being asked to do. And I don't know enough about defensive schemes to know, like for instance, when Gibson got lost on that 54-yard pass,
He
that's a
just stopped
pick.
running. He just
That's a
stopped running.
pick. It's a bad pass. So Mahomes almost had 2 interceptions. He actually is surprisingly
Well,
not good in Super Bowls. Did you notice that? The only really good game was Eagles. It's weird. Like he comes
well,
back, but
you
is
got
like
to
if you
toss
look.
the Bucks game out. The Bucks, he had one starting
No, 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 no,
lineman.
no. I didn't even include that. I was just meaning
So,
like the one ridiculously good game was against the Eagles where they only had one punt, but against Niners twice. If the offense even performs remotely okay in the second half and actually can close a game, he won in 1 and 3, 1 and 4, whatever. It doesn't matter
it'd be 1-3.
because again, it does matter that at the end of the game they were calling really well. He was executing and they won the game. That still matters. It's not what they call that pretty points or whatever the fashion style points. I kind of want to call them pretty points. That's funnier. But it is interesting with Wilkes that towards the end of that game, it became very obvious that he didn't know how to counterpunch. He didn't.
Yeah,
His
I think
solutions
he
were really
probably ran
bad.
out of bullets.
Yeah.
Well, and so I feel like to put it in perspective, Bosa he only had a couple maybe not great plays during it, and again, sometimes you don't know what he's supposed to be doing. You're just looking, you're like, oh, he let Mahomes do the thing on the. You're
Yeah.
like, well, but if Greenlaw's there, maybe Greenlaw just
Well, and
puts
to
a
that
hole
point,
in
earlier in the
Mahomes.
game when they gave it to Pacheco, he crushed him from behind. The exact same thing. So that was what, to your point, I think it's what they're instructing him to do. We have to crash and make sure they can't run. They'd never run that play, Rob. That they brought that out for the Super Bowl.
Nick Wright made the point today or yesterday. It would have been yesterday because I watched the day behind, but that they hadn't deliberately ran Mahomes, I think, since he got hurt last time.
Right.
So they were saving that for a time where they really needed it. So not that Mahomes isn't athletic, they do, but they're not going to design runs for him
No,
because he
because
runs
it's not worth
enough.
it.
He runs enough smartly. I will
Yeah.
push back a little bit that he did have the pick, but I think it was again because I've watched more Chiefs than I have Niners because they were the national game a lot. So is the Niners, but I think being East Coast, maybe I got those more. Anyway, there's times where he doesn't look good, and you realize, oh, Jawan Taylor just had a offsides. He just had a hold. They
Sure.
fumbled the ball. Someone ran the wrong route. And because there's a point that I looked and I was like, man, I don't know if Mahomes doing well. He was 7 of 8 at the time. I was like, I mean, not that he was thrown down the field. I think he had just under 80 yards or somewhere around 70. So, about 10 yards a completion. And I was like, I mean, that's not bad. And then I looked later and I think he was 13 of 15 or he might have been 11 of 15 and Purdy was different. I might have misquoted what Purdy was. And so you're like, how are they not scoring? And you look, when they fumbled the ball was actually even closer in the red zone. That they were like at the 10 or something when Pacheco fumbled or 20.
Yeah.
Whereas
No, it
I
was a
think
10.
when McCaffrey fumbled, he was at the 30 or something like that. Not that both teams probably wouldn't have scored or at least gotten points on the board. So then you start to realize, like, dude, not that Mahomes is cursed, but you watch and you're like, he's literally doing everything, and his
Yes.
teammates are just putting him backwards.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
agree.
and there's a replay that Romo had on the CBS broadcast, and it was from behind Mahomes, and Mahomes drops back, and it's like doubled here, doubled there, not open, not open. You're like, what is he supposed to do? And obviously, there's plenty of Purdy moments like that, but because they were getting pressure with four, I think it made. I mean, no quarterback looks good when they're pressured with four,
Oh, no, I
ever,
completely agree.
ever, because like seven people, you could put seven college guys back there, even if they're going to be lottery guys, seven lottery draft picks, because some of those guys still don't work out. Those guys aren't going to get open
No.
because they have at best four guys. So there's only one guy that has to cover one guy. So I think Mahomes played well most of the game. I don't know why that one to Kelce was overthrown. That's kind of a weird blip. I would have never
Yeah.
thought Mahomes on the run. That was just a weird pass because otherwise that was a big time completion, and things were going to roll further south. But I mean, you just look at it. If McCaffrey didn't fumble, or if they pick that up and go the other way, or
Sure.
if Pacheco, football is just such a it very much is like I said earlier. When you get the first down, when you score, when you make the big mistake, and I don't know you basically agree that punt, the muffed punt. I'd read some comments that people were like, he should have jumped on it. I'm like, look, Ray is terribly athletic,
True.
stupid athletic. That you put the most athletic guy back there. You know, they probably would put Debo in the past when he was younger, but you don't do that now because you don't
No.
want to get hit more. But Ray is silly athletic, and that hit and then took a weird bounce because yeah, he was trying to scoop it up, but the way he was moving to go pick it up, like he couldn't have dropped on it anyway. That was under his body. Like it squirted almost back towards him as he was going that way to pick it up. And so if that's like an inch or two out from under his feet, he picks that up and starts doing something with it.
Yeah, but
Or if you go
but the
2 inches
rule,
2 inches away from the guy.
the rule with the punt
Go
returner
ahead.
though is on any of that. The first rule is find it, fall on it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that's what you are
I'm
taught to
saying
do.
right. I'm saying his best effort was gonna be to pick it up because I wish I could get like it was under his feet, and so he was so far over his toes. I don't think he would have been able to drop on it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
What
I
does he
would
do? Just
say I think that's
maybe try and
because
kick it. I think maybe he should have kicked it or something, kick
but
it out of
so
bounds.
the thing is, and I don't want to claim to be an expert because I'm not, but I don't think. How do I say this? I think the end result is because of multiple things. One, he never fair caught that. Two, he didn't do his job getting everybody out of the way. That's his job. His job is to make sure that
He was
landing
yelling.
zone is. That's fine, but and if you watch the replay, he's very late with a lot of those things to make sure that's entirely his job. Darrell Luter, for the record, still needs to do his part. I'm not. This is acting like this is all Ray or that one fumble is why we lost the Super Bowl is bonkers. We had 2 turnovers we got 0 points off. So blaming him and scapegoating him is nuts. All I'm saying is his job as a punt returner, and whether it's fair or not, it's on him. Is if one of your punt return guys gets hit with the ball, you got to make sure it doesn't go sideways. Whether it's fair or not, or what's reasonable, that is ultimately on him. And I'm sure his special teams coach is telling him the same thing of like, cool, I get what you're saying. It's still your job. You know, if the center snaps low and the quarterback ends up fumbling it, whose fault is it? Ultimately.
Well, it's originally the centers, but it's then you got to make up for him.
That's my point. And I get, by the way, what I completely agree with you is us sitting on the couch going to be like, he should just fallen on it. Guys, it's way harder than that. So acting like, oh, it's just the simplest thing in the world, just fall on the ball, is not reasonable either. So I can't stand anybody who's going after players right now because playing football, I'm just trying to coach 7, 8-year-olds in flag, and that feels impossible. Trying to imagine being full-grown adults where everything has to go right for the play to go well. Like, it's hard to execute in football. And I think as fans, we need to remember that. It's hard.
Yeah, I think even whether or not taking responsibility, I think it was luck. I think it was just, or unlucky. Because, like, it barely 100%. Hit off his foot. He might have yelled short, and when he yells short, maybe if we were able to replay it, we'd be able to see it. Maybe he tries to veer out of the way and actually veers into the ball. You know, it's one of those weird things that, you know, if he didn't say anything, maybe it hits the Chiefs guy in the top of the head.
But I agree with you that he is definitely yelling, and that's the other thing too, right? What was weird to not rabbit trail, because we should talk about the Chiefs, like they deserve to be talked about. This is their 3rd Super Bowl. What was weird is the number of just odd miscues on the Niners. You know, because obviously it's partially luck, but it's not great execution on that punt on our part. It was just a lot of really. It looked sloppy, and we actually looked sloppy all playoffs, which is I don't understand that. I even throw out the rain game because it's hard to play not sloppy in rain. It was a weird offseason or post season. Jeez.
Well, Nick Wright even made mention to it that the Niners actually haven't looked good for like the last 6 games. Like they haven't looked like their dominant self since they romped the Eagles.
Right.
Like they looked okay. They looked, you know, the what was it? The Seahawks game we looked all right. Obviously against the Lions we didn't look good until we were almost dead. Same with the Packers. Just pretty consistently not looking the top of our game. And some of it is matchup, some of it is it's like we said, and maybe when we actually do this of play calling with defense, right? Whenever we pull that up, it'll be interesting because we can literally throw in, hey, this guy forgot to block this guy. And you're like, oh, that was a perfect play. That's a sack. Which is a lot of what happened for the Chiefs. The Chiefs regularly, and it's one of those things they're going to have to pay Chris Jones because they don't win any of their Super Bowls without him.
Right.
Because he
does what
he got a 1 year.
I thought he got a 1 year. Oh, because hadn't he held out?
He held out for a game.
Okay, so they just gave wow. Okay, that's interesting.
They gave him a 1 year. No. It wasn't like it was. Hey, we can talk about.
No. I know. I just didn't realize they'd only gave him a year. That's nuts.
Yeah. Well, because he wanted more than Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald's making like 35, and then the next closest guy's making like 29 million, and it's like, can we just split the difference? But because the Rams made the mistake of paying Aaron Donald way too much and resetting the market way too far. As good as Aaron Donald is, and I think they're still paying him that amount. Hopefully, Peyton does not stay awake.
Real quick
right now, but
I pulled it up because I was curious. To your point about luck on this punt return, and Ray is pointing. He is running towards them, and unfortunately for Darrell Luter, that's the moment where he's still looking at his blocker. It's the most unfortunate timing because the other gunner is looking up, looking for the ball. But he had just turned because he had lost. Oh. I thought we'd fix these issues.
How's this going? I kept it moving. I was doing a little monologue.
I thought we'd fix these issues. But it's that unfortunate timing. Ray's really trying to... And the other guy got out, and ironically, so here's what's even worse. The other gunner did the right thing and got out of the way. If he doesn't, he actually picks up that fumble. He was in the perfect spot, and he went towards the sidelines as he's supposed to.
Yeah,
and it's that exact thing. Remember the Superman dive by the Packers player on their fumble? I think it was on a punt or kick. It happens. It just, this stuff happens.
Yep.
we forget the turnover ratio was 2-2. It wasn't like we got crushed. So they got points off turnovers. We didn't.
When you can't count fumbles to go one way or the other,
Right.
it's a fumble. An interception, obviously, like that's like forced fumble on a quarterback for sure, but on a running back where everyone's around the ball, you don't know where that ball is going or where it's going to end up.
And real quick, and I completely agree. By the way, throwing out the Tampa Bay game because they weren't winning that game. But in the other Super Bowls, and again, I get 2 against the Niners. Niners have a very, very good defense. That's not saying he's bad. Joe Montana had 4 turnovers against the Cowboys in the catch game. So it is what it is. But against the Niners in 2020, 26 of 42, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 286 yards. Philly, he was crushing it. 21 for 27, only 182 yards, which is crazy, but he had 3 touchdowns, so he was closing the deal. And that's something he's very good at. You score touchdowns with Mahomes. That's how you win. Against the Niners this year, 34 for 46. Holy crap, that's a lot of passes. He had only 8 more than Purdy, but I think like 10 more completions, which is saying something. 333
and like
yards.
almost 100 more yards, too.
Yeah, exactly. Purdy only had like
yards.
250. 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. So all I was meaning when I say it's shocking that it's not like Montana, who's like 12 touchdowns, 0 picks or something ridiculous in 4 Super Bowls. But again, that doesn't change the fact he has 3 Super Bowls. Like, he's a great player. He closes games. You don't want him having the ball. It's just interesting that like his stats don't jump out at you and I get because Tampa's kind of the outlier. 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. But that's nuts to me because it in a weird way to kind of transition to the Chiefs because they deserve to they're the champ. Mahomes is weird in that it feels kind of like talking about Brady, right? Like there's a 54-yard pass that really should have been picked, but who cares? They caught it. It's not on Mahomes.
I don't claim that should have been picked because that's a safety, not a corner. Safeties,
or I just mean knocked down, like he was in the perfect spot. It wasn't like he was wide open. That's all I'm meaning.
I mean, it's blown coverage. I don't know. It's hard for me to. That's why you run certain things because he believed something was under and then realized something was over. So
no. He just flat out got lost, Rob. Like he was tracking that deep route, and I don't. To be honest with you, I don't know what happened because it wasn't like he was tracking the deep route and then had to get back. He was like playing under the whole time, and I guess lost the. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what happened. Regardless, it didn't get picked. It doesn't matter because it didn't get picked. It was a 54-yard bomb. And then I believe Pachenko fumbled. But it's weird to talk about Mahomes because outside of Philadelphia, it's not like he's just lighting you up. It's that same. You can't get me off the field. I'm always making really good decisions. I'm especially those last 2 drives where you literally can't stop him. He's throwing the perfect passes, and he's in sync with Andy Reid, and they are just crushing you. He's a force of nature, dude. Sucks being on the other side of it, but he's fun to watch, man. He is such a stud.
It's such a weird thing because he is. If you look at all of their games throughout Miami, they weren't going to win. They're Dolphins, and Dolphins don't like the cold.
And
like
they were
in
1-7 versus good teams.
Yeah, they were rough. And then they only beat the Cowboys, who were not good against any good teams. So,
and I don't want to rabbit trail too hard. I have a buddy who's a Dolphins fan, but I don't think Tua is it. But we'll talk about that in the offseason. We're on the champs right now. They deserve the podium.
But against the Bills, we may have even talked about this on here. They didn't have any play over 20 yards. The Bills didn't, right? Because they played it a certain way. Because Allen loves big chunk plays, chunk throws, all that stuff. But they didn't even have big chunk runs.
Right.
That he can get every now and then too. So, and part of the reason I say that is because against Mahomes, you are worried about having to score.
Correct.
So, and it's what a lot of defenses do nowadays. Not that Spagnuolo is doing what people do nowadays. I'm sure he's rolling some of it in, but it's you have to do 8, 9, 10 plays to go score
Right.
a field goal or a touchdown. You don't get to just do it in one play
And you
because
can't
one
make
play,
mistakes.
right? And the more plays you have, right? There's a reason even Mahomes threw a pick.
Right.
The more times you throw the ball, the more times you run the ball, the more chance you have to either fumble, holding, false start, um, um, not
Things
lined up in
going
the
wrong,
neutral zone,
honestly. Well,
illegal
right.
shift, bad snap, whatever. Right?
Which was weird all game. Those snaps sucked. That was a
Yeah,
lot of bad snaps.
yeah. But so like they kept the Bills from any big plays. So then it makes them feel like they have to force and force and
Agreed.
force.
I will say though the Chiefs or Bills also stopped, and this is I saw a trend this year because I hate to say it this way because I don't want to take anything away from them because it's not their fault. But this has been the weakest I've seen the NFL, where every team they played beat themselves. Now, again, I get that. You also then went and beat them. Buffalo had a couple just really bad drop passes where Stephon Diggs had like a 60-yard bomb and just didn't catch it.
Yeah. I mean,
Patrick,
that's
sorry.
I'm despite what people might think if they ever watch this, I am a deep threat wide receiver. I am not a good short route. I don't have a big body for people to stop me. I run by people. That's my job. It is hard to catch at full speed,
Oh, yeah.
and it was cold. So
Yeah,
I
no,
know
I agree.
Stephon Diggs paid, but like the Shakir drop, I will make mention to that. Stephon Diggs would have been a huge play. Like they would have won it. Maybe they win the Super Bowl after that, but well, probably not because I think Baltimore would have ran it up their butts at that point
Well,
because they
and I
didn't have
actually,
anyone left. But
ironically, I think that the Chiefs and their specifically their defense was like the perfect Shanahan counter. Not again, I get Baltimore beat us. I understand that. I think we would have played better this time than we did last time. Maybe there's still the same problem, but ironically, I think the Bills were probably the best matchup for the Niners just because of the defense, not even because of the offense. Out of those three teams, that's who you want the Niners offense going against. Now, does that mean the defense would have beat Allen? God only knows. The guy shredded us last time we played him. But my only point on the drop with Diggs is to beat Kansas City, you are going to need to make those plays, right? Then Baltimore had the fumble and the stupid taunting penalty, then the interception in the end zone. That's what I meant more by beating
right.
themselves is you have to play, and the Eagles learned this, you have to play almost perfect. If you don't play almost perfect, they're going to beat you. They don't make enough mistakes for you to be able to make mistakes.
Well, and I think it shows poorly on the Niners because
Yeah.
the Packers I should have just called them the Patricks. The Chiefs didn't make any like turnovers in any of the first three games.
Right.
They only had the mistakes against, which does show well for the Niners defense making those errors, but
They almost
obviously
had
then
him shut out for the
offensively
first full half. Or
they don't
first
do any.
half.
And remember me saying I was like they can't let him score. They did. Obviously, then the Chiefs win by 3, and the blocked extra point. You know, you just have to. Again, with football, you can literally score in every play, but then not every play matters as much, but it could,
Right.
right? You can point to all the 3 and outs that Patrick had, but he went what touchdown? I think they said field goal, touchdown
Yeah,
in
they
his
end the
last
game.
4 drives or something like that. Um, that can be every drive. The Miami versus the Broncos, they scored 70. Literally, they scored every drive. That can happen. It doesn't because there's a penalty, there's a fumble, an interception. There's something that happens of good defensive play to knock a ball down, a drop. And so I get what you're saying of not beating yourself, but I'll push back on the saying that the NFL was like weaker because people were thinking the Niners were going to go undefeated, and then they had the skid, but then they just started beating everyone again until Baltimore. Baltimore legitimately could have gone undefeated this year. because they literally led every game by a score, except for the last game. They didn't start anybody. But they were leading every game that they lost going into, I think, the fourth quarter. So they blew like 3 fourth quarter leads, but they're still
Yeah,
what,
but
14 and
that's
3
actually
or
still my
13
kind of
and
my
4.
point. We didn't really have. I mean, we coronated a lot of teams as most dominant, and they just we. It didn't feel this year like we had like the Niners kept being favored, but they'd also randomly look really bad against because I think this year was the least good defenses I've seen all year. It was really Cleveland, Baltimore, and Cleveland was terrible on the road, and then Kansas City. And I get the Niners had a good defense. I'm just meaning for who they played. This year was the year where I was like, man, there's not really anybody who, for instance, Niners go into the playoffs, Packers are able to hang with them, Lions are able to hang with them. This was the year of the most parity I've seen, where we didn't have someone coming in where we were like, man, they kept anointing the Niners, and as a Niners fan, I kept telling them, like, there are holes here. There's a bad O-line. The defense struggles against, this, and this. There wasn't the Ravens defense with Ray Lewis, or I'm trying to think, or, I get the Rams lost, but the greatest show on turf. Like, there wasn't one of those teams this year where we're like, oh, yeah,
Well,
okay.
but last year there wasn't really that either. Philly was a good offense, and some of that is we say they're the greatest show on turf, ends up being after the fact type of thing.
Oh, well, I mean, they were
Not
lighting
just
it
not
up.
right. No. But certainly towards the end of the year, you're like, man, this is a record-setting year. But I don't think you look at most years that way. Like even last year, with the Chiefs, they weren't. They had a great offense. I think they may have set some records, but it wasn't the same way they had done with Tyreek just
Oh,
running
sure.
free.
Keep going.
I did can you hear me when I do that? Still, when it
No.
cuts out? Oh, okay. Well, I did a funny voice. Um, but
So frustrated.
people were coronating the Bills, and I know that's what it's playing into what you're saying. But they were saying like, don't let the Bills in the playoffs. Don't do it. They're on fire. So not that any team showed itself to be dominant, but I will point to this. Again, this is high school Rob. I actually watched a Facebook memory, and I was like, dang, oh, so different. Um, but my team, we won every game by more than 11, and I don't think we allowed more than, was it 55 points? Something like that. I think our championship game was like 48-32 for basketball. This is not football, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I wouldn't be bragging about it, only allowing 55 points. Um, we made teams look bad and make mistakes and do all those things. So, like, as much as you're not taking away from the Chiefs, and they did make all these other errors, like those first 3 games, the Chiefs didn't make the errors, and then in the Niners game, they did make mistakes, but they didn't make them late, right?
Right.
And they almost, the mystique of Mahomes coming back probably scared Shanahan. I don't know if it worried Purdy at all. He was
No.
probably felt the pressure, but it seemed like he was doing all right.
He's
Um,
just one of the coolest. I don't know how he maintains his poise. It's nuts to me. He does impressions in the huddle to calm people down.
but I wonder if Kittle doesn't seem like one who would be, but I wonder if Kittle and Debo were nervous because Debo had drops. I don't know if Kittle. I don't remember
Kittle
if Kittle
just
had any drops.
was not involved, and that's a off-season
Right.
discussion.
That's another issue in and of itself. But like, I wonder if they're trying because of the conversation around Purdy. Not that he's earned the conversation of being, the Nick Wright weak link, even though clearly that was offensive line. And if nothing else, just the play calling for the line. Maybe not the play calls, but the play call for the line to do what they're supposed to do. But in general, our line was not great, except
No.
for Trent Williams. Um, that they were trying to make up for maybe anything Purdy might not have. And so then they were starting to pressure or feel the pressure of Mahomes or trying to make plays for Purdy or whatever. But I mean, the Chiefs just do this. It's why people were concerned that they weren't winning other games because they should have won the Buffalo game. The guys offsides, whatever. But um, all intents and purposes, they won that game, and they were just Tony didn't really. Well, he played after that, but he didn't play much after one of his last drops that turned into an interception. But
Healthy
I think
scratch.
it was Tony that had caused the pick six against the Lions that made
Mhm.
them lose. Um, I think he had one against the Patriots, and the Patriots it was a pick six, but they didn't end up winning. Um, and then all of his just other drops throughout the year. So it was like they got rid of the problems of Sky Moore and Tony not catching the ball, and then all of a sudden they were more all right than in general. And you know this, we've watched enough sports that a team that is really good is the Warriors. Take the Warriors for example. Obviously, they've won one more championship. Technically easier in basketball, but they've won more championships than Mahomes as a squad. Draymond said it a number of times. It's hard to get up for a regular season game in Memphis. Now Memphis is good. Maybe you say Charlotte, against the Hornets. The Hornets aren't good. I don't want to play against the Hornets. This game doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that for the Chiefs, but we'll see if it falls into next year too of not being able to get it. Because like Chris Jones, that guy's got nothing to prove.
Right.
Three,
Hard to find that
at least a
motivation.
two-time Super Bowl champ. I think he was with the first one
Mhm.
too.
Three
He's
times.
about to be the highest paid defensive player. Like, what does he have to prove? Don't play me as many snaps because I want to be fresh for the Super Bowl. That I plan to get to.
Well,
It's just hard because the Niners needed guys to.
yeah.
Chase Young had that sack early, didn't do much after that. Bosa was a menace most of the night, but we need in order for the Niners to be, the giant. Even though the Niners were favored for them to play the giant spoiler to the Giants to the Patriots, they needed those guys to just always be on Mahomes, the way Baltimore was at times, or some of the other times of the year. I think Denver made them look really bad, or the Raiders game.
Well, and I don't want to get
They
into
were
it.
literally after him a ton. So
I don't want to get into it too much because I hate talking to the referees, but it's just true that they're the most penalized offensive line, and the Niners never got a single call, and that's
yeah,
part of it. Is it's really hard to rush the quarterback when you are literally getting tackled. And again, that's not the Chiefs' fault. If they're not going to call it, I mean, that is what it is. And the only reason I was really kind of saying, because I still do believe this is the weakest, is if you look at the MVP race, for instance. I think we can all agree this was probably the weakest MVP race we've had in a long time. We didn't have a quarterback doing what Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Brady that one year, to the point that, to even you said you didn't think really Purdy should have been MVP. He was the top option at one point besides him and
yeah,
CMC. So I think this is that lull where we're watching the young QBs, that kind of the ebb and flow, right? The last wave of all the old QBs are kind of leaving the league and we're getting all the young guys. And I think this was kind of that lull year. Because if you look, especially in the AFC, obviously Burrow was hurt. It was actually 6 or 7 QBs with season-ending injuries, which
yeah,
was nuts. But if you look in the AFC, obviously Lamar has kind of yet to unfortunately prove he's any good in the playoffs. But then it was like C.J. Stroud. Weird for poor Browns was freaking Flacco. That was like their 4th QB.
yeah.
It was really the only standbys, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think was just Tua, Allen, Mahomes. Everybody else was essentially new, right? Am I crazy? I feel like everybody else was
Tua
not.
hadn't played in the playoffs yet because he was hurt the
Oh, that's
year
right. Which
it was
was also
Skylar
bizarre.
Thompson. Yeah,
Um,
so it was just Allen. Obviously, um, Lamar had been to the playoffs, but he hadn't won. He had one win, I think, but he hadn't played well in any of the games. I think he's 1-3. He might be 2-4 now.
right.
I think he's 2-4, but he's also been the
Two and
number
four, or
one
two and
seed, I
five.
think, a couple
I
times.
don't remember.
Because
So
I think it's 2-4 because I'm pretty sure he's 1-3 going in, and then went 1-1.
real
So I
quick,
think it's 2-4.
Mason Rudolph for the Steelers.
Yeah,
Baker was playing really good, and I don't want to take anything away from him.
that's NFC, right?
No,
But
no,
to your
I'm kind of
point, right?
going through
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
to get an idea of who is in the playoffs, right? Um, why am I not
Baker,
4,
Goff,
5? You only show me
Jordan
the
Love's
first one.
first.
Oh, of course, you're only showing me the wild card.
Mm.
I just wanted to. Here we go. Thank you. 14 NFL playoff starting quarterbacks. Yeah, Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Stroud, Flacco, Tua, Mason Rudolph is not exactly a murderer's row of AFC quarterbacks. Considering, like, when the season started, everybody's like, the AFC is going to be nuts for QBs. Then if you go to the NFC, you have Purdy, Dak, Goff, Mayfield, Hurts, Stafford, Love. And again, I think Matthew Stafford is very good. He's also very old, and the Rams are not very good. I like Baker Mayfield, but it would have been surprising to see them really make a run just because of the total team. They were 9-7. Hurts and the Eagles were 1-6 going into the playoffs. Goff was playing great, but no offense to him, I'm so sorry, no one really had faith. I love Brock Purdy, but let's face it, first year, you're not really thinking he's who you have to beat. You're looking at the rest of that team. We know Dak's not good in the playoffs, and Love, that was his first run. So when you look at the 14 QBs, it's not like we're going, well, this is just stacked with Hall of Famers that you're going to have to beat. And again, that's nothing against Mahomes. That's not his fault. They went and won the Super Bowl. They weren't handed to them. They didn't get lucky. They did what they had to do. I'm just meaning if you look at all 14 QBs, it's not exactly that impressive, right?
Yeah, but they also played the four best.
No, again, I'm not
Like,
arguing that. I'm just meaning when I say as a whole, I don't mean anything against the Chiefs. I just meant as a whole in terms of the NFL, that was just the weakest we've seen it in a while.
I think in part though that's what we've talked about of that guy going to Seattle from Baltimore, just a new wave of
Oh yeah.
defensive
I was thinking
scheme.
QB. Sorry.
And so I think it's, and I could contradict myself within this, but it's something I was thinking about. Like there's this new style of defense that Baltimore was trying to figure out, and then there's also all of these offensive coordinator head coaches.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get, at least with Harbaugh, right? John Harbaugh, he's a special teams coach, which is important, but it's the least important of the three sides of the ball. Offense and defense, obviously, super important. Special teams don't make mistakes, right? And he's got Justin Tucker, who doesn't miss, so he doesn't have to worry about field goal ever. So then it just becomes basically punt, because also kickoff and kick return rarely matter as well. So he can focus on the whole team. But then you look at Shanahan, he's an offensive guru. So he has to make sure offense is great and doing all its thing. So he doesn't have as much time for the defense. Now the defense has gone well. He's got all those studs. But I think there's a number of teams that have these great offenses with not as great defenses because the coach is offensive minded.
Right.
Even Dan Campbell, right? He was a tight end. So he's more on the offensive side. He seems like a defensive guy because he's still crazy and tough, but he's going for it on fourth and doing the thing. So I think there's this weird swing where there's these crazy defenses, and so the offenses are trying to figure out how to beat that. And there's plenty of good offensive-minded people, and they've figured it out to some point. But it is creating a lot of this parity, where instead of, hey, we're all running cover 2 or we're all running man, or there's so many different schemes throughout the time, the 17 games you play, that I imagine the offense is having a hard time adjusting. Maybe the people who've done the best are the ones who, whether it's the Shanahan system, just seems to fit best against almost all of them, or every team you end up playing seems to play very similar, right? In the sense of like if you play the Steelers, well, they have T.J. Watt, and then you play the Browns, and they have
Miles Garrett.
Garrett. Yeah, and so you're like, okay, well, we know our offense has to plan for that guy, and now we build the rest of it, so then it seems similar. I know that's a very, very basic version of that because I don't think the Steelers and the Browns run the same defense. But in the sense of maybe if you're just looking at players that you're trying to not deal with,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we got these edge rushers. Okay, so how do we not deal with them in the sense of like we're going to deal with them, but how do we not let them mess up the entire game every play?
Well, and really,
So I
real
think
quick,
we've seen that swing.
there's a
Go
reason
ahead.
Jim Schwartz is 10-1 against Kyle Shanahan because of what he prioritizes. But most teams can't rush 4 and then cover everybody on the Niners. So that's part of the reason why he does well is, this isn't meant to be a knock on Shanahan. It's just life. They have so many weapons, it actually becomes very hard to be like, well, we're just going to take everything away. Or, what the Chiefs did, play press man with 2 amazing corners. They are so freaking good. And then rush 4 with Chris Jones.
And one's a slot corner. It's
Right.
not like they have 2 outsides. They have a slot corner and a number 1 cover corner. So if the Niners had Ayuk and another opposite that's also 6'3", they might have had more trouble. But it's Ayuk, which is an outside, against Snead. I'd pick Snead generally. He might get a pass interference call, but he's going to make more plays than he doesn't. Then there's Debo, who's in the slot. And it's like, dang, that's really rough because if Debo was another guy, it probably would have been more effective. Because then you maybe put McDuffie against Kittle, and now Kittle's running open all day. I don't care how good a slot corner is. I'm not covering a top 3 tight end.
Well, and, we love to talk about it and just doesn't, in my opinion, get talked nearly enough, is matchups matter. The Niners ran the most condensed formations, and you know what Spagnuolo does a lot from those formations is blitz. And the Niners, which blows my mind. You have 2 weeks to prepare, and you're not prepared for the one thing that they've shown you on tape they do all the time. That's really weird to me.
Yeah, and it's like if you know you're not going to we probably should shift to what Kyle shouldn't call ever. And not play specifically, but the things that are issues.
Yeah.
We called it last year of like, maybe we need to block Riddick from the
Blowing
Eagles.
up the arm of the quarterback.
Because he did it to him. I think he's the one who knocked out Johnson. Isn't his name Johnson, right? The backup.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Joe Johnson. Josh Johnson.
I don't think it's Josh Johnson. And I know it's not Joe, because Joe is used to play for the Hawks.
Yeah.
But I think he knocked both of our quarterbacks out. Then when we played him again this last year, he also ran free, and Purdy was luckily ready for it. I don't remember if he spun out of it, threw it away. He was just like, I'm not dealing with this again. But when you know that's going to happen, because they were, I think it was Jennings. I forget who was saying, like, Purdy's actually really good against the blitz. Like, really good.
Yeah, he's number 1 in the NFL.
But that's generally when you know the blitz is coming. So the way Spags is, he does blitz a lot, but you don't necessarily know when it's coming because he does blitz so much. You know it's coming, you're not sure from where, which makes it obviously more difficult than someone who never blitzes and you're like, that guy's blitzing. I can tell.
Crazy?
He never does this.
You know what's crazy still, though? He was Purdy was 13 of 19 for 115 yards and a touchdown against the blitz. That same blitz. Yeah. And that's to your point. It's okay, cool, good, you were 13 of 19. But which ones did we get you to get an incompletion on?
Right. Well, yeah, what were the 6? Because they were probably those 3 out of 12 third down conversions.
Correct.
It was probably one of the 9 that he didn't.
Well, and everybody's making a big deal that he's bad against interior blitzes. You know who's bad against interior blitzes? Every single quarterback.
Let me see. Well, maybe not Josh Allen. He might be okay. Mahomes and Purdy and Brady and Manning and, literally any great. There's no quarterback that wants a blitz up in their face.
Well, and especially because
Now,
you have to have a very specific answer to an interior blitz.
right.
Blitz off the edge, you have time to move about around the pocket. You have more time to let the play develop. And we saw specifically on the Detroit play where Purdy got out of it and then scrambled. Interior, you don't have that option. You can't move in the pocket. It's very hard to scramble out. And typically, unless you were specifically prepared for it, and to give the Chiefs credit on our, which we never should have done, cover zero blitz, they had an option right over the middle. That was the perfect answer. Niners don't have that. They don't. They don't have those kind of answers.
I think, though, if you look as far as play call, him being 13 of 19, I don't think all 13 are just like Purdy doing magic. So
Right.
I would give a lot of credit to Shanahan, like knowing, hey, blitzes are coming. These are the things we're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
You still can take some credit away knowing that, well, if you know the blitz is coming, how do we pick that up? Because
Right.
someone made mention, if they convert when McDuffie blitzes, they probably win that game because they
Or
can.
Chris Jones, there's a touchdown in the end zone. Two guys open.
Right. Well, but hold on, because you never
sorry.
end up going to. You possibly don't have to give the ball back to.
That's
Mahomes.
fair. You know what? That's a good point. You're right. You're right.
Because they were saying it would have been. It would have hit the 2-minute warning, or it was already below it or something. They would have had to burn their 2 timeouts because you would be first down. So you get first, second, and third down automatically, which it's, a 40-second play clock, 35-second play clock. And if there's 2 minutes on, that means you're at 1:45 right there. So it's essentially like 20 seconds left if you run all the – but they had timeouts and whatnot. So but they would have had room to get another first down possibly. But a new set of downs, now you can run the ball. You can do screen – like you can do a lot of things with that and possibly – then a field goal does win it because they got 6 seconds left. They don't have Tyreek. They ain't winning in 6 seconds.
Right.
You know, you kick that out of the end zone. You make them earn 75 yards in 6 seconds. You deserve to lose the championship if you give them 75 yards in 6 seconds.
Right.
Now, maybe Kelce does a Buffalo where he catches it down the middle and then tosses it to Tony. Maybe he is that guy, but
you mean Tony on the bench?
yeah. Well, I'm just saying that's who. Right, throw it to Rice. He's actually on the field, but yeah, I think if we transition into Shanahan, like that, and I feel like he did it a little bit less this year, but maybe that's just because he's playing inferior talent or inferior DNs at times. I don't feel like he had he left the DN naked most of the time this year, seemingly except for some of the plays in the Super Bowl.
I'd have to go back and look. There was unfortunately, pass protection and unblocked free runners was a problem all year. Not necessarily DNs, but just in general. And I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about pass protection.
I mean
to know who
specifically
that is.
DNs because
No,
DNs are the nasty guys.
No, I know. I'm just
DNs and corners because corners are fast and DNs are bigger and faster than linemen or linebackers. And I don't feel like you get away from those guys.
Yeah, and this is where it's
tough,
tough,
but linebackers
right?
maybe you could.
Well, this is where it's tough because you don't play Spagnuolo except in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. I know we play him regularly. I just mean consistently. And then
what's his name? Oh, just kidding. Go ahead. I was thinking our defensive guy did not play them, which he didn't. But that's irrelevant. He's a defensive coach, so sorry.
True, but. Then now I'm in a weird way. I know this sounds really weird. I'm kind of glad Mike McDonald's now on the Seahawks because I think it's ironically going to help Shanahan because you're going to have to improve because you're going to have to play him more consistently. I think part of it is if you look at the NFC, we match up really well with the defenses in the NFC, but not in the AFC just because they just play a little bit differently. The better defenses are in the AFC. Baltimore, Cleveland, again at home.
Even Cincinnati's pretty good.
So I think really it's remember when Oregon went and got whooped by Alabama in the national championship game? It was because they had an offense that was fantastic in the Pac-12 for how everybody played. But then you went and played Alabama, and
They played Auburn.
Was it Auburn?
When
well, you know, honestly,
are you talking about more recently?
Just
or are you talking about with Cam? Because Cam played him in the national championship. The Ducks, I don't think, made a national championship since.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. You know what? Let's face it. I just kind of always assume it's Alabama because you throw a rock and they're in the national championship game.
I mean Mariota, but it was Mariota.
They played Ohio State, who beat them 42-20 in 2015, which is not who I'm talking about, for the record. You got to be right.
The other time was with Chip Kelly, against Cam.
Yeah, but same concept. Big, right. Ridiculously good defense.
They couldn't do all their speed stuff that they were doing because they were facing someone just as fast.
It's the same thing with Shanahan. When you actually strip away the misdirection and motion, and you don't need to care about it, to be quite frank, because you have the guys to we just need to cover and get pressure. The Niners offense is not that good. It's really not. And I know that's so overly simplistic, but that a lot of the things that Shanahan does well are against defenses who are really just trying to keep up because they just don't have the horses to keep up with all the different weapons. When you run into a defense, like I said, Cleveland, Baltimore, Kansas City, we don't have – I love Ayuk. I think he's fantastic. You don't have a guy who can just get open. You don't. And then against man coverage, you need a guy who can just win. Or be really, really good at quickly scheming them open. And we're not. That's actually not something we're very good at against those teams because they can jam so well and play physical. That's really good against what the Niners do.
Yeah, I agree partially on the Ayuk thing. So Ayuk.
Hold on.
This, whatever viewers we don't have.
I'll be reopening a ticket with their support. Be like, I did what you guys asked. It still crashes constantly. Okay, sorry.
But go ahead. With Ayuk, he's such a good route runner. Like he can win on those things. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's just going to win them against Snead. Because
sure.
here's what ends up needing to happen. You need, and I don't remember.
Have a need for Snead. No, I'm kidding.
Did I say need? Snead?
I was making a stupid joke. Need for speed. Need for Snead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right, but I don't remember if I said need.
You said it right. No, you said it right.
Or Snead. But I don't know if Snead was guarding the Buffalo receiver that I'm forgetting, Diggs, on that play. Right? You need a Diggs. You need a old school Julio Jones or any of like the top guys. Because that is the problem. As much as I do love Ayuk and Debo, and Kittle is in his own class because he's not a wideout. Debo isn't like a traditional receiver, and he's not even like an Edelman in the sense of like he's this shifty like in a phone booth type of make a guy miss and get his 4 or 5 yards all the time, right? He is a generally catch and just truck a guy and do whatever. Ayuk is an amazing route runner. So he gets open really well, but he's not, I would say probably not a top 10 wide receiver. I mean, there's a lot of wideouts.
That actually might be an interesting experiment for the offseason.
There is a lot of wideouts. Now, I'm not saying numbers-wise because he's on a good team, put up numbers, whatever. But I think he was all-pro. He might have been second team. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I pick him because I think they go two first-team wideouts, 2 second-team. Maybe they go 3. So if they go 3, then he would have been top 6. He's not a top 6 guy to me because there's a bunch of guys that didn't get numbers.
Second team all-pro for Ayuk. Didn't make the pro.
Yeah, and I don't know how many they pick, but Justin Jefferson didn't play. Jamar Chase didn't play. Those are 2 guys that would immediately take his spot. I'm sure there's more that would be in there. So A.J. Brown, I would want more than him. Tyreek, the other guy for the Eagles that I'm forgetting, who's really Devontae Smith, like him a lot. Who else am I thinking? I think I would still want Cooper Kupp. I know he gets hurt, but I like Cooper Kupp more still. He's more accomplished. But anyway, there's like this laundry list of guys that are unfortunately better than him, as great as he is. So when it is, and I think that's partly why Shanahan thinks he's so, the best mind in the world, because Debo is great. He's not great on every team. To me, he's a Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Better than Draymond Green, I will say, right? Despite not winning championships individually, Draymond Green is not a great player. On a certain team, he's really great. Debo, I think individually is still a really, really top-level player, but at the same time, he is maybe the best that could be in the scheme that Shanahan runs, right? So he makes Shanahan look better, but he also makes Debo look like he might be the best receiver in the world when he's not doing things the top receivers in the world might have to do.
Right. Well, and I don't think he could recreate that on most other teams, just because.
Right.
And this is a weird pet peeve I have with Shanahan is and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, he's obviously done a ton with Debo and all these guys, but it comes to the point where you keep picking guys for your system, and that limits what you can do outside of that system. Right. So, now listen, it got him within a quarter twice of Super Bowl wins. If a lot of things go differently, we're not having this conversation. Now, one thing I am, and we'll end on this because I'm so tired of people doing this, is now Kyle Hurd's coming. Somebody literally sent me the video on Twitter, and I'm shocked. Colin Cowherd saying Brock Purdy is just Jimmy G, but more efficient. He's the same guy. And it's like, God, Colin, I love you, buddy. You're clearly not paying attention. That's flat out not true. And it is. I don't know why a Raiders fan, by the way, is such a hard-on for Purdy not being good. Is it because you don't have a quarterback? I have no idea.
Yeah. They love Aiden O'Connell over there.
Yeah, I was like, why are you even in my mentions? This is bizarre. But you just flat out aren't watching film if you think that. I'm sorry, and I'm not big on. Cowher can say whatever he wants. He has a show, cool, have fun. But you're just flat out wrong, and that's the biggest bummer. I know he wouldn't have gotten credit for winning from specific people. I don't mean everybody. There's plenty of people who think he's good.
Nick, if you didn't see, Nick actually did give it. He's like, he played way better than I actually thought he would.
Oh yeah, he said it wouldn't be close.
And he was like, sorry. Yeah, he was like, he played way better than I thought he would play, and he was good.
And that, by the way, to be fair to Nick, because I get he's a homer and he bugs me. Normally, you give him enough evidence, he will change his mind. He's willing to say, "Hey, listen, I have enough evidence that I feel confident that I can change my mind now." And I get it. Part of it's he trolls Brew, and there's all these other factors. So,
well, yeah.
Whatever.
Unfortunately, Brew it still brings up the Jimmy G stuff, and it's like, I think Nick as a fan is very annoying. I don't like him at all. In the sense of the show, I don't think his fandom actually comes out as hard because he had a lot of proof. No, but he had a lot of proof of like, this is just a team that you don't want the Chiefs to be a defensive win team. He was like, look at their defense. They're winning by defense. Mahomes is making mistakes. That's why they are losing games right now. Or their wide receivers they're just making uncharacteristic mistakes. He's like, the whole year they do.
To clarify real quick, I'm meaning like Mahomes Mountain and all the other fun stuff he does. Because I get part of that's for the show, to be clear.
Sure.
So, I get that's part of the shtick. Sorry. But his analysis is actually very good, honestly.
He teases Purdy in that sense. Well, he's a great debater, which means you actually have to have your ducks in a row. Yeah. Drew's not nearly as good of a debater.
No, he gets
destroyed. When he says facts over feelings, I'm like, dude,
no, he gets owned.
None of those facts actually line up, which is unfortunate for Nick because then Wilds and Brew are just in fairy tale land, and he's like, I don't understand what you guys are thinking. But I wanted to make this point about Shanahan is that I actually, as much as he's a little bit maligned at this point, amongst Niner fans and different people, he has lost to Brady and Mahomes twice. So as much as we're like, hey, he needs to do this, he needs to do that, He's also lost to Brady's still number one. I don't care where you put Mahomes right now. He is not lower than 4.
No.
He's not. Because,
Mm-mm.
like, okay, so it's Brady, and say you want Montana because he's the 4-0, great in Super Bowls, whatever, cool. You can have him there, Niners fan. I'm okay with that. Peyton is in there
Mm-hmm.
because he's got 5 MVPs. Like, he was his team.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when his team didn't have as much success, but that's going to happen.
Who made the point,
Um,
too, where he goes Super Bowls follow, which I think is a fantastic, I think it was Acho. That's a great
yeah.
point. I
He
So,
yeah
sorry,
he
keep going.
he wasn't even good the year they won in Denver, but they lost the year that he was good. So like kind of whatever. And then so if you want to argue Mahomes fourth on that list, I think now he's probably got to be third. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
Peyton, he's like you just watch and you're like, I'm sorry, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Um,
Well, and
but anyway, like he's so he's Shanahan's lost to
the greatest of all time.
two of the
Mm-hmm.
greatest of all time. And so, if he played Allen, he maybe wins. He plays Lamar, maybe he wins. Plays Burrow, maybe he wins. But he's playing Mahomes, who is 9-2 when he's down 10.
Yep.
When he's down 10 points, he wins 80% of the time. So, for all the blunders, half of football is not making the mistake when it matters, and Mahomes seems to make the right play when it matters, and it's like that's just
Well,
infuriating.
let's face it. So, and what bugs me is people would say I'm taking away from Mahomes, and I don't agree. Think about this: Kelce, probably one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Andy Reid, probably one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Spagnuolo, right now, I don't think you can argue is the best defensive coordinator of all time. And then you also have Mahomes. And it's okay. You do need all of these things to win Super Bowls. That's how hard a Super Bowl is. A different
I
defensive
would
coordinator, the Niners probably beat the Chiefs.
I would push back because I had actually seen it today, and it was about the Chiefs or Kelsey bumping Reid or whatever, and
Oh
how
yeah,
to
we
me
have to talk about that real
that's
quick because
really
I don't really freaking care.
yeah
Good
that's
lord.
I mean it's nice that we touch on it a little bit, but I don't think it's as big of
No.
I personally don't like it individually
Sure.
to show up your coach, but he's done that earlier
Yeah.
in the year, and he would. Someone was saying that he was saying, "Put me in, I will score." And then someone was also saying that maybe he's yelling at him because you had the backup tight end, and the reason that was a fumble is because the tight end didn't pin that guy to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Lenore, right?
Yeah.
Was able to get off the block and strip it, right? If I was in, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, so, I like that. Hey, my dog is scratching the window like she's got to pee like crazy. She lasts all day without me here. She's fine. It's crazy. But so I like that fire. Um, I forget where we're going otherwise.
Well, you push back
Yeah.
with something because I said Kelsey
Oh,
maybe.
about Mahomes. I don't know where Spags won it first. Man, it might have been with the Rams or something like that. Way back when. So Kelsey was considered a hothead at one point
He
and might have
won
been
with
out
the
of the league.
Giants in 2007.
All right. So they were not that great that year until they got the playoffs.
Yeah, and
Um,
he beat Brady,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's pretty good. That's
No,
pretty good.
no, no. Right, but you got to look at they were able to. He didn't have to blitz as much because he had OC
Oh
Pierre
sure. Oh
Paul.
no,
Minus
sure.
Strahan. Anyway,
Yeah.
hold on. So he Spags won one before. Reid is a great coach, but hadn't won before Mahomes. Kelce was a great tight end, hadn't won before Mahomes. And none of them were considered this like rarefied air.
Sure.
The first year, so what I'm saying is Reid might end up being considered the greatest coach ever. Kind of like a Walsh and Montana situation. Spags might be considered that, even though he did not deserve the first 2 Super Bowls. That his team's defenses were just hot garbage, and Mahomes was
Sure.
just a scary son of a gun. And you can credit Kelce probably more, certainly than Spags, and probably equally with Reid, because he's literally on the field reading defenses, giving Mahomes something open. Okay. But Mahomes threw for 50 touchdowns in his first year. There's only 2 other guys to ever have done that, and he did it in his essentially rookie year. So my only point is, yeah, he's got these guys around him, and maybe it's the perfect fit. But Mahomes is this otherworldly guy that I think he's boosting other people up. Right? He's making other guys end up looking so good. Because if Reid has Brady, he may not win what he's winning. Because Brady is 2-1 when trailing, or he's 10-11 when trailing in the playoffs. 10-11, which is great. I think everyone else is 6 and something, 6 and 40,000.
But are we doing the chicken or the egg argument? Right, because we're kind of falling in the same trap we did with Jordan. Right, is Jordan without Phil Jackson?
Well, we saw what Jordan was without Phil Jackson.
Which was what? As 40?
He was the best player.
Like before?
Pre-Jordan. Or yeah, he was the best player clearly, but maybe not ever. And then you align him with a guy that just directs him the right way. And also Phil, that weirdly, I think that was Phil's first head coaching job.
That is weird.
But then I don't know that they were actually that good. That Phil was this. So Phil did well without Michael. They only won one less game. Still went to the Western Conference. So maybe Phil is a really great coach. But then he had Shaq and Kobe. So I'm not going to push back of like you can't have a great coach and win. Certainly in the NBA, you could probably win without a great coach. I think LeBron has shown he's won. With good coaches and bad coaches.
He takes anybody.
But in the NFL, in the NFL, Andy Reid's probably top 10 with the 1 Super Bowl, let alone 3. So the marriage of having a great coach with a otherworldly quarterback puts you in this new type of.
Oh no,
Reid might be the best coach ever, right? Because the problem
100%.
is Walsh isn't a great coach unless he has Montana. Montana might not end up being the guy, right? But we certainly have seen Reid without a Mahomes.
Yeah,
we'll
I don't
see
like
whenever
that argument,
Reid
though.
Retires. Okay, I mean,
hold on. Here, let me explain because I totally understand what you're saying because we did the same thing with Brady. We now everybody's like Belichick's terrible, and it's frustrating to me because especially in football, name the last great quarterback who won with a mediocre to bad head coach.
I got to think through some. Well, I don't know how good Fossil is, but Eli somehow won.
I thought that was
Super Bowl.
Coward. Or it was. Oh my gosh.
I thought it was.
No,
Fossil.
it's a longer.
No. Oh, no. Yeah, I remember, but I don't know if anyone would say like he's this amazing.
Sure,
we'd have to go back
and
and
that's
look.
like a unicorn, though. That's kind of my point. Like if you actually start to go through Super Bowls, if you want to get like the fact they got 2 is actually incredible. To be honest, like that's a freaking miracle. So that's my point. For you to win 3, you can't do that without a great coach. And this is actually what's so frustrating. Is I don't mean that to take away from Mahomes because I agree with you. Andy Reid with Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens still lost to Brady. Now you add Mahomes, who again I have said is probably the MJ of our generation, and I don't think I can give him higher praise. But again, MJ didn't win until he got Pippen. MJ didn't win until he got Phil Jackson. I think it's kind of like you have to have the package. And then different people, let's take Kelce off the Chiefs. Do the Chiefs win?
Russ, they already took Tyreek off the Chiefs.
Well, okay, but my point, if you look at, you even said at the targets, right? I'm saying you take one of the best tight ends off their team, and I get it, they could have replaced him with someone else. I'm just meaning you have to have all of these pieces. You do. I will tell you right now, we've never seen a quarterback without elite weapons win a Super Bowl, maybe outside of Brady, and I still think people underestimate, 1, how good of the defenses he always had, and 2, the pieces that fit that system. So that's all I'm saying. He's still really, 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 really
I'm
good.
I'm just pushing because there's been a few things of not to take away from Mahomes, but then this. So, and it's not a salty Niner thing, right? I know that's
No, it's
not where
just
it's
you
coming
have.
from.
I'm just meaning you have to have all of these things. I don't think you like, for instance, you take away Spagnola. Does that defense perform at the same level? Right? Like you take away Andy Reid. Are they as good? Especially towards the end of the game with some of these calls that they make. That's all I'm saying. And I think the mistake we make is we say, like Mahomes beat Purdy. Well, no, Mahomes didn't. The defense played very, 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 very well, which is a big piece of winning a Super Bowl. I think it's that we do this all the time in football. The Jerry Rice. If Randy Moss had the quarterback Jerry Rice had, his numbers would be silly. Well, it's like, okay, but
Well, Jerry was actually still good with the Raiders,
no,
and
I know,
Moss
but I
fell
don't.
off
You
the
don't even need
cliff.
to go
So,
there. You can say, well, if I'm
right,
going to give one guy those weapons, I can't take away from the other guy who played his whole career with them. So if Mahomes
yeah,
never wins without Andy Reid, I don't care. He's still one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It's not.
sure.
Go ahead.
I, but so you've only brought up Kelce, right? Which is huge. It's huge. No one's actually been able to use a tight end like Mahomes slash Andy Reid has. But
Oh, that's not true. Brady and Gronk.
it, it's a different sense of it.
Oh well, sure,
Just
sure.
look at the playoff numbers.
Yeah.
In the sense of like Gronk has crazy touchdowns, but he actually doesn't have nearly as many receptions and yards
Yeah.
and
Oh
whatnot.
no, agreed.
He was the ultimate target, but
Yeah.
I'm saying the things they actually do with Kelce, they're similar to Gronk,
Kelsey's.
where Gronk doesn't necessarily run a certain route. He
Yeah.
just is bigger and they throw to him.
Well, and Kelsey's
Um,
incredible at reading defenses. Like that guy is nuts at knowing where to sit, where to go. It's impressive.
But I got to push back on the elite weapons thing because I love Rashee Rice. He's a rookie. He didn't play a ton of snaps in the sense of like he wasn't playing 90% of offensive snaps until like probably over halfway through the year. That's why Tony was getting all those drops, and that's why MVS was getting all the drops, and Sky Moore wasn't playing well. Last year, they won with Tony and MVS and Sky Moore playing, and I don't think anyone would probably pick them up for their team.
No, I agree.
So,
But we could make the same
I'm
argument
pushing.
for Brady that because I literally
No,
said
no, no,
other
no,
than him.
no. I'm fine with making that argument for Brady, but you're saying look at the people who haven't won with elite weapons. He doesn't have elite weapons.
Well,
He's throwing.
I'm not arguing
Pacheco's
that
in.
point.
You did.
No, I literally okay. Now we're nitpicking.
No,
Okay, so what I'm saying is that's partially why I'm bringing up Reid is when you have a team, and I agree they don't have elite weapons, and it's why they've been a defensive team all year. Their offensive numbers are not that impressive. We talked at length about them winning with defense, and that is how you win with defense without elite weapons. That's how you win with an offense without elite weapons. Is your defense has to be really, really, really good because you can't race anybody. So I don't think I've contradicted anything by saying that's why I mentioned everybody: Spags, Chris Jones, Kelce, the Snead, and McDuffie. That's all I'm saying is you don't go to the Super Bowl with the weapons they have without the defense that they have. I don't think that's crazy to say.
well, their defense wasn't as good last year,
That's fine.
and
Yeah.
they did, and Mahomes won MVP. So
Sure. Agreed.
I was just making the point that he doesn't have multiple. People love Pacheco. I think he's good. He's a second-year
Yes.
guy. We'll see how long he lasts the way he runs. He's decent out of the backfield. He runs hard, but to the point of he's probably not making every roster in the league. Maybe they do because he's a Chief, but
No.
Like,
He maybe
he-
gets a contract, but they can replace him.
But just over the last 2 years, Mahomes hasn't had these yes, Kelce. Yeah. Take away. Well, if you take away Kelce, then it's gosh, I'm trying to think of it's the Carolina Panthers then,
Yeah,
right?
pretty
Of weapons, who the heck is playing for this team? So I was just pushing back on. He doesn't really have more than Kelce as an elite weapon.
Right.
Compared Right, and Kelce's on, but he's also considered old. They're wondering if he's going to retire.
No, I agree, and that's why I brought up Reid. Is the difference with that is you have to have elite play calling because you don't have elite weapons, and then you need an elite quarterback who can then run that offense. It's Brady 2.0. It's the same thing we talked about. Is Brady? I mean, Edelman. Crap, forgot his name. The other.
Well,
his
Amendola
twin.
ended up being there. Wes Welker is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but because of Brady, like if you look at no one.
He went to Manning, and Manning threw him the ball every time because he was always open.
Okay, let me go back real quick. He is a incredible slot receiver and did that amazing well. Same with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Like they have that skill set, absolutely. But there's a reason why he played with Peyton and Brady. Is it wasn't like he could just go anywhere and put up the same numbers because there's that element of those quarterbacks can utilize those weapons really, really well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I think both Chiefs and the Patriots are two teams that show you with an elite QB, you don't need Stephon Diggs, you don't need Justin Jefferson because, and they talk, and again, I'm only saying this is just watching so much film on how creative and how good of a play caller Andy Reid is. You don't need to load your offense with elite weapons because also it's that marriage between an elite OC and an elite QB. Andy knows, hey, I know Mahomes can run all of these different plays and look for the right person, and I trust him, and we don't need to have... He does the same thing Brady does, is he makes people look really, really good. I don't think anybody, maybe outside of Rashee Rice, to your point, is going to just be like, guys, we need to go steal him from the Chiefs. He's so good. So he elevates. I completely agree. Brady and him, I can't name another quarterback that could run that offense and get to a Super Bowl. To absolutely agree with you,
I don't think Brady could get to the Super Bowl with that offense either, though, just because of his mobility issues. Because the line wasn't a perfect Brady line. The weapons, maybe he throws a pillowier ball than Mahomes, and maybe those guys actually catch the ball for him. But yeah,
who knows? But no, I agree with you that those are. Dad would say Montana. I didn't watch him, so I don't feel confident in saying he didn't have elite weapons. Obviously, he had Jerry Rice, but I think he said he won before Jerry got there. But I don't.
John Taylor had I think Dad had said they had 200 and something yards in the whether it was Super Bowl or one of the games in the playoffs that they won prior to Jerry. When they won the Super Bowl, that run, he had 200 and something yards in one of the games prior to Jerry being there. So, and again, I don't say any of that to take away from obviously any of those other guys, but they were saying this year that this is maybe the worst group of skill position players. Certainly, it's certainly the worst group of wide receivers that's ever won the Super Bowl. I would say that without a doubt. I won't
argue with you. No,
right? Because then you don't put in Travis Kelce. Because I also don't think their backup tight end is amazing. There are some good back. The freaking Ravens have 3 amazing tight ends, but so you have Rashee, who's really good. He set the playoff record for a rookie, but that's also because he couldn't throw to anyone else because their hands don't work. 84 wasn't very good. I forget his name. He dropped that one that Romo said the guy was gonna put his arm up but didn't. I forget his name.
Watson?
But Watson. Yeah. He's okay, but he drops the ball at times. Sky Moore didn't play. Tony didn't play. MVS makes big plays, but throughout the year, man, he was dropping stuff that were big plays. I don't even know if anyone else. But it's to because I think we look back on Brady and we're like, dang, he actually did a lot with not nearly as much. And I think just to give it to Reid, obviously they're all giving each other credit. That's the funny thing. Mahomes is like, dude, I can't do it without Reid. And Reid's like, I literally didn't do it without Mahomes.
Yeah.
But in the sense of if you put and I know a lot of people don't like these things, but I particularly do. We had talked if Mahomes was in Shanahan's offense, he would, and maybe it was before we started, he would probably hate running that, but he'd probably be very effective. I
Yeah,
think you do well with McVay, that Ben
yeah.
Johnson guy. I think
LaFleur, I think he'd do well.
LaFleur. I think Mahomes, because he is literally the best, he would thrive in all those other places.
I actually, it's
And
funny.
obviously,
I would have said Shanahan, but now knowing enough about his offense, I don't actually think he would suit Mahomes that well
I think he would
because of
still put up numbers and do
no
well, but
agreed.
I don't think he would like it. I
No,
don't
and
think
I
he would
actually
like it
think
at
it
all.
wouldn't. I actually really begun to hate. He's such a actually quarterback friendly offense because yes, from play action it's very quarterback friendly. Otherwise, it's awful. It's actually not
Yeah.
quarterback friendly. So, which is to me why, again, I think Reid fits Mahomes so well, and they fit each other because Andy Reid is very quarterback friendly. He's very okay. I want you to have the options. They're big on hot reads. They're big on choice routes and very creative play calling. And I think it. I actually don't quite understand why. I know I keep saying but it's not. I should be saying and because it is such a great marriage for those two. It really is. Andy is. I see it all the time looking at film. People love his play calling and think it's extremely creative and innovative. And because he has Mahomes, it's almost like me giving Reid credit is taking away from Mahomes. I don't think that's it. I think it's complimenting your quarterback.
I I'll take that, but I also think because you're salty with Shanahan right now, there's just a little bit extra salt in
No,
from his. No,
it's more just watching a ton of
because he's
film.
not. No, I mean it because you want him to do certain things that you think will make the team better, and it
Oh,
seems
well,
like he's
sure.
not doing that. Whereas with the Chiefs, we don't necessarily see that because they are winning. And someone had brought up Reid historically was terrible with clock management.
I mean, he still is.
Uh, but with Mahomes, he's not because Mahomes has it like all up there.
Sure.
Like he's like, no, we need to do this. We did do that, whatever.
Complimenting your coach, 100%.
Right to where they went and got the field goal when because he didn't spike it when they needed to. He ran a play, threw it out of bounds. Maybe he probably should have called a timeout then.
Yeah, that was a
but
weird sequence. They lost like
you know,
20 seconds or something ridiculous.
so maybe Mahomes didn't do it as well in that moment, but like that takes a lot off of Reid then, where
Yeah.
it is then just play calling, and because the whole playbook's open, whereas maybe it wasn't as open for McNabb, or certainly maybe early
Actually, I
on.
wouldn't know.
Whereas,
I would have to look. I really don't know what's changed, to be honest.
but yeah, I mean, we won't be able to see it for a long time until Reid retires, and obviously there will be some bumps and bruises, but like Mahomes was still near MVP quality numbers, and people looked, oh, too many interceptions. 3 of them were Tony going to the defense
Yeah.
and literally like handing them the ball. So,
Well, he's going to
which
do the
then
same
were
thing.
other.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
He's going to do the same thing Peyton and, in my opinion, Brady did. Is if you have a really good foundation for your first couple years, the offensive coordinator doesn't become as nearly as important because of
Right.
how good those guys are. You start to go, okay, Mahomes, what do you want us to run? Because he's proven do what he does well.
It's a co-op game plan instead
Yeah.
of like the OC's coming up with the game plan, and then it's like this. Hey, I don't really like this against this because of this. It becomes much more of a two-headed monster in a good way, where they're really figuring out, oh, I saw this, you didn't see this, whatever. I actually hope they get the enemy back because
That would be their smartest hire, to be honest.
because if Mahomes is there long term, he likes Bieniemy. Bieniemy is tough on people, and maybe as a head coach he wouldn't be any good, which is why it seems like he's not getting hired because he's kind of an a-hole.
It is weird he hasn't gotten
But
hired
that's
yet.
why they had all those penalty issues on offense because Bieniemy was that guy.
Right.
Tony, get your butt behind the line. Stop. Taylor, stop being offsides. Whatever. Like he would have been that guy of putting the fire under their butt. Not that Andy's not tough, but Andy is a player coach.
I think he fits Kansas City because I would argue Mahomes is definitely more wants someone like that. So
Yes.
if you have your quarterback setting the tone and you can be the asshole coach, kind of like Belichick, that works.
Yes.
But you have to have your QB be like, no, go listen to him. You get your together. I'm tired of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Mahomes, get your side of the ball working because you're not doing it right, and then he can take that. Because someone was saying too, like Mahomes never threw his wideouts under the bus because he knew he was going to need them. They weren't
Yeah.
getting new wideouts. He
No.
knew he couldn't say MVS, get your hands, out of the cold because they need to catch something. They never did that. Now they didn't play Tony or Sky Moore, but they're probably not going to be playing Tony or Sky Moore or re-signing them or keeping them, right? So it's like he had to keep his guys engaged. So he wasn't being the a-hole of like, you know, go get on the jugs. They did it anyway because it is funny because we're talking about him elevating people, and Mahomes is actually so good. He actually made his receivers look horrible because he was literally giving them such catchable balls, like just right in the hands, and they were dropping them. You're like, these guys must be really bad. If they can't catch a pass from maybe the best quarterback ever, how bad are you? You know,
Well, to the point,
if you
Tony's a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl.
if you can't block for Barry Sanders, you must not be a good lineman
Correct.
because he will make one guy miss. So just don't make it you. So yeah, it'll be interesting going into next year. 49ers are already the favorite for next year, which is odd.
So weird to me.
It makes sense because no one's ever three-peated. So like it would be weird to bet that they would win. And
Well,
if you
it
get
is
Burrow
about money.
healthy,
It's not about odds. Let's be honest. It's about money.
well, right, but Vegas will lose money because people will put money on the Chiefs. But odds wise, it's like it's gonna be a new champion. It's just gonna.
Sure.
Like that's just the odds. I don't care how he won one year, then he lost a Super Bowl and AFC Championship game. Now he's won two in a row. So
Yeah.
it's not he's not going to win every year. He might win every other year. He might win next year, but it's one of those interesting things where you're like,
Well, and
"Ooh,
honestly,
why
real
are we
quick-
betting against Mahomes?"
To me, and this is where I also don't love the, well, what does he do when Reid is gone? Because it's like, well, he's good regardless. I don't think, if he never won a Super Bowl without Reid, I don't think we're going to, unless he has like some colossal like cliff dive in terms of talent, I don't think we're ever going to look and go, oh no, that was because Mahomes sucked. Or, you know,
Yeah.
what I mean? Because, and that's why I don't love the, well, Brady went one without Belichick. Listen, if you needed Brady to go win without Belichick, that's kind of alarming to, I know we want it. That's like kind of the confirmation of, well, I want to see it. I want to see you, you know, it's why people point at Montana when he took KC to the championship game, but it's like, football is way more complicated than that. Mahomes can't just drag a bad offensive coordinator to a Super Bowl win. Maybe he can. I highly doubt it.
He did because Matt Nagy's technically the offensive coordinator, and he was with the Bears, and he's not that good.
So only
because
reason
it is Reid, but
that's
I will just
my
give him
counterpoint.
I'll give him a half a nod that Nagy is not he's a smart offensive mind, but he's maybe not the best play caller. He might be a good coordinator, but not play caller.
And
if you just parse
think
it
of
that
Josh
way.
McDaniels. Is it McDaniels or McDaniel?
Yeah, McDaniels.
Terrible head coach.
Josh.
Brady loves
Either
him.
way. Yeah.
So
because he called what he wanted.
Now, actually, let me go back real quick. You're absolutely right. Nagy's garbage, 100%.
At least at play calling. I won't call him
not a
a
good
bad
head coach.
OC.
Not
yeah.
a good head coach. I agree with you. Probably not a great play caller. Clearly is a good OC. That's why he got a job. So, yes, I agree.
At the same time, I feel like other teams need to look at, and this is probably something we should go into not today, but Lovie Smith's been the only good coach for them in years.
Yep.
So maybe it's not Nagy. Maybe it's not the Uberflus or whatever his name is. Maybe it's Chicago and the ownership because they've not won since '85, and they've tried a lot of different guys. But I would like to say, and maybe this we end on, the thing with Belichick, his record without Brady is not good. And now I will give him, he's not had good quarterbacks other than Brady. He went 11-5 with Castle. They didn't make the playoffs that year, which is strange. and I think that was when the Jets were good, and I don't know how they
Yeah.
didn't make the playoffs, but they didn't make the playoffs. I'm pretty sure they were 11-5. Maybe it was 10-6, but they were
Keep talking,
really
I'll
good.
look.
What was that? 05? 09? Maybe it was 09. Was it 2009?
2008. Still won 11 games. So let me look.
Yeah.
You keep talking. I'll look at
But he won games with Matt Castle. 11 games. And Matt Castle went to the Chiefs, I think, after that and was just hot garbage.
I thought he went to Kansas City.
I said the Chiefs.
Oh my gosh, I heard something completely different. So yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he went to the Chiefs and the Kansas City of Chiefs.
Good Lord. Niners were 7-9 that year, by the way.
Yeah, well, we weren't good for a while during that period of time.
No, we
that
weren't.
Was after we're like Garcia, see you later, and we're like, God, maybe we shouldn't have. Tim Rattay.
So dumb.
5-0, and then went 0-11 or something like that after that.
Real quick. Miami was 11-5. Baltimore was 11-5. Colts were 12-4. So it was just all the teams were really good, and they only led in 6 teams.
Well, and there was a lot of bad teams then, right? There's a lot of probably 2-fers and 3-fers, and at that point,
well,
there would have to be.
Want to hear something hilarious? Bengals 4-11, Browns 4-12, Kansas City 2-14.
Yep. Well, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, and that was fun fact. That was also the year Detroit went 0-16.
But then like with Mac, he went to the playoffs. I think they were 10 wins or something like that. So with Mac Jones, they were pretty good. But then I think he broke him at some point. His confidence was shot.
Where I agree with you, he's not. So he's a great defensive coordinator. He's a garbage GM. He drafts terribly. He should never have any say over that because he keeps drafting these. I want to get Brady, but Brady's a unicorn. Like that's partially why, understandably, people have trepidation about Purdy. That is not a repeatable pattern. It's just not. And he keeps trying to. It was Jimmy G. It was Matt Castle. Oh my gosh, the guy who went to Indianapolis, whose name I can never remember. Thank you,
Jacoby
Brissett, Mac Jones, Zappy.
But I don't know. I don't remember if he drafted him. But all the same.
But you know what I mean. Like he's just.
Yeah.
That's and every head coach has it. We just said Andy Reid's not good at time management. Belichick, one of the best coaches of all time, should not ever touch a draft board ever. He's terrible at it. And just partially Tom Brady left. He's like, listen, the cupboards are empty. I think it's time for me to go. So, I mean, it's that, and that's why I say I think if you look at any well-run organization, you have to have a good GM because that GM has killed it.
Yeah,
killed it.
But he's also clearing it through Reid. Like, hey, are we going to be able to do this? Mahomes, can you make this work? Cool.
And
all right.
We're
going to go get some D.
GM did great, and I agree with you, by the way. Spagnuolo does have 4, and that also that probably gets into how much talent did he have, because to execute a scheme, you do need the guys. That's an interesting discussion.
So his scheme is hard because it is so nuanced with all the stuff. So when guys get hurt, backups don't get enough reps. It doesn't run as well. But also he didn't have the good defensive thing.
Right.
So it's one of those things where he is a good coordinator, but he didn't become a better coordinator over a year. He just got really good players that have grown well into what they're doing.
Right.
So he gets credit, but he gets a very small piece because he's dialing it up play calling, but his guys are you don't dial up Chris Jones splitting a double team. You don't call up,
I agree.
McDuffie making a, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
same offensively.
I mean, but that's also my point about Reid, point about Shanahan, and I think what's interesting is where you and I tend to differ is I definitely put more on coaches, you put more on players, which that's fine because that's actually a pretty typical split. And that's why maybe I'm harsher on Shanahan because I'm a big believer on the thought process of put your guys in the best position to succeed. Don't just do a scheme and then just like, okay, everybody fit in my scheme. I think Reid does that well. To your point, Spags clearly doesn't because you need the horses to run the scheme, not I have these people. Let me
Well,
tailor it.
he might water it down when it's not as good of people, but then his stuff isn't as effective because he
Right.
believes you got to
Now,
pressure. So
and
it
that's
makes it
also
rough.
life. When you don't have as good of ingredients, your pizza doesn't taste as good. That's how it works. That's football. It's the part no one wants to talk about is you do need good players to have good schemes. Like,
Yeah.
you're again going all the way back to it. Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Without Mahomes, he doesn't have a Super Bowl win ever. That's part of it. You need Mahomes.
Yeah. And if you look at, and maybe this should be another thing we talk about, is all the quarterbacks that have one that aren't actually good. Because then you actually do the math and you're like, Aikman has 3, Montana has 4. Unfortunately, Jim Kelly has 0, but he went to 4. Mahomes has 3. Brady has 7.
Winning Super Bowls
Steve
are
Young
hard.
only has 1.
Yep.
Elway has 2.
I think it was a back-to-back, too.
Bradshaw has 4. You start adding them up. Of the people with multiple, there's actually not a lot, but there's enough to where it's like, man, that's like 75% of the Super Bowls. Kind of like the NBA. LeBron has 4. Steph has 5? 4 or 5? 4?
He hasn't passed him.
He has 4 then, right? KD doesn't count because he was with the 2 that, what's his name, won. You just start looking, you're like, man, these guys, they get them in bunches. The best players get them in bunches. And then there's guys that get left out. And it's really sucks, because Duncan has 5. Kobe has 5.
Right.
If Kobe didn't have 5, Paul Pierce would have 2 or 3. And then he looks a little different.
Well, and that's it. And again, we're at 2 hours, 11 minutes, but it makes sense. We
figured we were,
It's the Super Bowl. There's a lot to talk about. But, I want to mention this real quick and why it's a little pet peeve of mine that we sometimes do that with rings. Again, I get it. You need something to rank people. Fine. And maybe it's because we're both LeBron fans, because it's like, well, but you watch him and like, dude, he's really, really good. I don't care that he lost. He took mechanics, and I'm joking, 2 finals appearances. Like, he took nobody's. So I don't love when we do that because Steph Curry is arguably one of the best. Is he a shooting guard or point guard?
He's a point guard.
One of the best point guards of all time. I don't care if he wins more rings.
He's too small to be a 2.
Well, the NBA is weird, and sometimes they put people in places, and they're not really that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He can run point. He absolutely can run point.
No, agreed, and he wants to. Yeah. It's obvious. It's why Durant worked, because he's like, cool, here, have fun. I'll pass you the ball all you want. But I don't love kind of ranking people by that, because I think in both of them, they're a team game, right? We just talked about it. Purdy possibly has a ring if a guy doesn't muff a punt, but does that make Mahomes worse? No. Just looking at wins and losses is not. I think there's so much more to those, and it's why I'm hard on Shanahan, but I don't want anybody else. Shanahan's really, really good. The fact he took Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl, the fact that I think Purdy's really, really, really good, but in his first year he went to a Super Bowl. There's got to be a part of that's Shanahan, obviously. The fact Mahomes is really, really good, but was ready to go speaks to the coaching of Kansas City.
And he did sit for a year. To be fair.
Guys, which you should. You should always sit your young quarterback. I think it's just too important to allow them some time to learn. You're normally not going to get 7-0 like Purdy started. That is a freaking anomaly. Peyton set the rookie record for picks. Like, you usually want your guy to have time to acclimate to the NFL. So I just, all of this is so much more nuanced than we want to make it. We just kind of want to go, well, Purdy sucks. Mahomes is really, really good. It's like, guys, there's so many factors that go into a win and a loss that just we don't spend enough time talking about that we should. We really should, because they matter. The fantastic idea to call that quarterback keeper twice was brilliant, but Mahomes executed it perfectly. So you need both of those things to happen to win those games. So I could keep going. It's just a pet peeve of mine, because every factor of a team is so important. We almost lost, or actually we beat Green Bay because we blocked a punt. So yeah, special teams doesn't. Oh, and actually Chiefs got 7 points off of recovering a fumble and a punt return. all of these things in execution go into it, and you winning a Super Bowl, and I agree with you, we'll talk about it, is freaking hard. Who you run into, when you played, who they got on the other side. And right now, Shannon's 0 for 3 against two of the top, I don't know, man, two, at least top 4. I think probably higher, maybe?
I'm saying top 2, because Brady,
I think I agree with you.
At minimum, has the stats, and it, like, has the most. Look up some of the Super Bowl records. ESPN had it on their thing. Brady has, like, obviously all the appearances, all the wins. He has the most yards. He has the most touchdowns. He has the most, or not most touchdowns. Steve Young has that, but like just Tom Brady just obviously had a lot of opportunities. But then you watch Mahomes, and you're like, it's not Andy Reid alone that he's 9-2 when he's losing.
100%.
Because McNabb was darn good, sends his school to where, or at least used to send him where Caitlin, our niece used to go to school, or does go to school. And he's phenomenal. But guess what? He's not 9-2 when trailing. He's just an anomaly. He just never thinks he's going to lose. He knows exactly where to go. It's one of those things that when people, I'm sure MJ was like it. I'm sure there's a number of Bird was really clutch. Like when the game is on the line, they just like have this. Kurt Warner talked about it. He could be sending a text to somebody, and his kids are yelling his name, dad, whatever. Does not pay attention. He's just focused. And then once he's hit send, it's like with someone calling me, like legitimately did not hear anything they're saying. And some guys just have that pinpoint focus of this is the play, this is what they're in, this is where I'm going, this is what's happening. And then when they need to make that split-second decision, they do it. And that's what separates Mahomes being 3-4 in the Super Bowl. And not to say anything with Purdy or Jimmy G or whatever. It's purely, it is Mahomes. Right? It is Mahomes doing those plays that makes it happen. And Chris Jones on the other side being the Mahomes of the defense of I may not get the sack, I may not get the fumble, but guess what? They're not going to get the ball where they needed to go when it's time to go there, and you lose. And that is really tough.
And that, by the way, is my only real point with that's why I don't really factor in wins too much, because without, I mean, again, I hate also doing this because who knows what else would have went differently. Maybe Purdy throws a pick, blah, 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 blah. Without the 7 points off a turnover and the blocked, extra point, maybe Mahomes loses that Super Bowl, but does that change how good he is? No. It's just that's how hard Super Bowls are. That's what it comes down to, is just one or two little things that sometimes your quarterback has zero control over, by the way. He's not returning a kick. He's not the one running the ball who then fumbles. So he's still that good. When it came down to it, like you said, his last 3 drives, what were touchdown?
I think it was 4.
Field goal, touchdown?
Field goal, touchdown, yeah.
Yeah, so in the biggest moments, and it's where I'll give credit to Purdy too, is he was also scoring there there with him. He ended the game without the ball in his hands. So sometimes that's also how you lose the Super Bowl, is you don't even get the opportunity.
Yeah, you don't get the ball back.
And again, to your point, Chris Jones probably saved the Super Bowl on multiple plays. Just a one-man wrecking crew. Your point, you need players doing that too. So, yeah, it's
which is why you pay him $20 million, which I know I think they're paying Bosa right now.
Yeah, he's like contract? 33 to 35 million. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's then the problem is Bosa played well, but he needs to make the Chris Jones. Chris Jones is not impactful the whole game, but he's which is why usually, the Niners were up like 10-0 or whatever it was at one point. It's like Chris Jones not having an impact or whatever, but then they start having those impact
plays. He had some help, but yes, I agree with you. Leaving him completely unblocked is quite the decision.
No, sure. But then, like, he still split some double teams and caused some other issues, right? Where it's like, dang, how I don't, and it's just, it's weird because they have a few the Snead, McDuffie, Mahomes, Kelce, Chris Jones, and a couple linemen. Everyone else is like probably pretty replaceable. Well, Rashee Rice will get there. I'm not going to put him in either category. He's one in the middle. Everyone else is relatively replaceable. Their linebacker
Yeah.
isn't the best in the world. Their edge rushers, Amenahu, he was hurt, but he's not the best in the world. But they have McDuffie, Snead, Mahomes, Kelce, Chris Jones. Those 5 are the best in the world. Of the 11 guys that can get on the field at any one time, they have 2 on one side, 3 on the other, and you're like, dang, I guess football might be a little bit like basketball. If you just have the best players, maybe you just win because they make those plays. Whereas generally with football, it's like we want the best average of 11 guys we can get.
Yeah.
But man, when you can just be like, I'm gonna mark down, Chris Jones is gonna make 1, 2, 3, 4 huge plays. Mahomes is gonna make 5 or 6 huge throws. Kelsey's gonna make 3 huge catches. You win a football game. You know,
100%.
you have a kicker that makes the biggest kicks.
57 yards, dude.
I feel so bad for Moody. We can
Yeah.
end on this. I know
Yeah.
we keep talking. It is what it is. Luckily, Peyton is still staying asleep. He woke up and went back to sleep. I'm sure he's got
the
poop.
show after the Super Bowl, and we missed a week. It's fine.
But for Moody, who is much maligned, he's a rookie. He missed a kick against the Browns that Purdy would have had less people on his back if they win that game, and sets the record. And then Harrison Butker goes, "Hey, I'm actually gonna beat you. I'm gonna kick it from further." That stinks a little bit. And someone in one of the comment sections was like, "They shouldn't have all things be in a dome because it just makes kicking honestly too easy."
Ooh,
There's pressure,
we should
but in the
talk
sense
about
of
that next
dude,
time.
there ain't any wind except for in Arizona, like at Chase Field for baseball. It may not be Chase Field anymore. Whatever. If they put the dome they cover the baseball field, the ball flies not as well or something like that. It's some weird thing where
That's
because
weird.
the open air it's drier, but when it's closed it's more humid, I guess, or something. So naturally you won't fly as well during humidity anyway. But in Las Vegas, where it's a huge football stadium, there's no dampness anywhere in that place. It is.
I had this discussion with Dad, and again, we won't. I now I'm curious to talk to you because I'm pro dome every Super Bowl. I don't want.
Me too. I want good circumstances. I don't want one team to be a running team, and then it's raining. Cool, we're just gonna run the ball, and then Dan Marino's on the other side, like, the hell, man, like we're gonna throw the ball 50 times, you know, or like for us. Like in San Francisco, we almost lost the drizzle game because Purdy can't throw a ball because he's got the size of hands. He's got my hands, and I don't have very big hands. So,
but dude,
I'm
this
pro
has been great because, no, I'm not. I'll admit it. I'm not happy about the Super Bowl, but I'm not on the fire, Shanahan. I'm not trying. I don't think I'm too salty. It's just more of I get. This is all areas of life. I don't like watching mistakes constantly repeating themselves because it's just my own standard for myself, so it's frustrating.
Well,
to
you
watch.
do code. You can't have things be repeatable mistakes because there's lots
That's
of
very true.
problems when your code is. That's
a repeatable mistake crashes
That's
the
a
server.
systemic issue, right? If I keep making the same mistake, then I have a problem with the way I go about things. No, it's not that you come across purely salty. It's that you're like one step away from firing him in the way you come off, but you're like, no, I don't want anyone else. But it's like, I need you to change all these things. Rightly so. It's because you're very complimentary of Purdy, not as much of Shanahan, very complimentary of Reid. And I'm not saying you're not complimentary of Mahomes. You're just it's like you're flipped on them. One is like, yay, Reid, and then one is yay, Purdy, and then there's one like, Mahomes, yeah, he's really good, but he's also got Reid. And then it's like, well, Purdy's got Shanahan, and Shanahan's got all these mistakes when it's like, you know, Shanahan might just be Reid East until he, you know,
I mean, he is right
through.
now, 100%. And also to be clear, because to make sure this is very clear for all 0 people, is Shanahan is a great coach. Like he's very innovative. Lots of people are copying him on his offense, and if the thing he needs to improve is just a better drop back game, and in fairness, like he might have tried and he had Jimmy G, and that's just not going to work. So
or Nick Mullins or
yeah,
yada
at the
yada
moment,
yada.
I haven't seen anything that gives me hope that he is because this is how he interacts with media. So I'm trying to remember that is he's very much, I don't like the media. I don't want to talk to the media, and honestly, I don't blame him. But it's hard to be like, okay, I don't really get a sense that you are. He kind of pulled a Jimmy G in my opinion, and it never really took credit for mistakes that happened, which was really weird. It was like, no, we did everything. My plan went exactly how I wanted. I'm like, I have questions because if that's how your plan was supposed to go,
yeah,
I have concerns. But hey, I think he trusts Purdy, and that gives me faith that he's going to do everything in his power to improve over the offseason because he's one of the most competitive people you'll ever meet. You see a photo of him after a loss, that dude cares. So, we'll see. I think it's going to be a fun offseason. I'm really curious how they draft because, God, please don't take another defensive lineman. Please, God, take a lineman, just an offensive lineman. But he's also someone you can basically pencil in for the playoffs. That's a great asset to have as a team that you can just okay.
Anyone that you're going to pick up that's a veteran will want to go there.
100%.
They're like, well, if we don't go there, I need to retire then because I'm the reason we didn't make it. So,
and clearly he's great at developing coaches. They're poaching all the way down to the passing game specialist coach.
Honestly, I'd be interested in why that's maybe we didn't win the Super Bowl because, we don't know fourth or overtime.
It's the fourth time. I'm just.
Well, I started singing. I think we're not going to get very many. No one's going to watch this song anyway. But maybe that's why he didn't know overtime rules because he's busy getting the video coordinator to be ready to be offensive coordinator next year. I mean.
No, you're not kidding.
You're trying to get everyone online. So another topic that might be good to go over is every coach that we know well enough and what their weakness is.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's Shanahan, and I'm not going to name any to spoil any of this, but like Belichick has his, Tomlin has his, Jim Harbaugh is going to be one, and he certainly has his. So that might be another one that we could go over because there are a lot of guys and they have weaknesses, and you're like, dang. But then you realize it is a mosaic for sure of how to build a team that you don't want guys that are just clutch. Like Chris Jones on a team that's trying to make the playoffs, you don't want him because not that he takes plays off, but a guy that's been to you don't want Draymond going to the Hornets. He's going to cause a fire. But Draymond on the Celtics or the Bucks, if he's on the Bucks, dude, that team's gonna be nasty because he's gonna create some competitive fire that will then when they get the playoffs because they're gonna go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to weave that in of what rookies do I have at what spots with what veterans with how much money. I can't pay my quarterback $50 million and be good. There's very few teams that are gonna actually be good if they have.
Well, and real quick, everybody's talking about Mahomes' contract, but I thought you had...
I think he's $40 million.
Well, yeah, but I thought you had said they'd done a really good job of essentially kind of like not making it as painful.
So they did it over they did like a 10-year contract, but then I think they redid it to like 5 or 6 years. I think they redid it for some reason. I think it's still relatively team-friendly. So the problem is, and Nick Wright is really good at this, of knowing, like, the Saints are in cap hell. There's a bunch of Denver is in cap hell with freaking Russell Wilson. You can make contracts and you can push them out to where there's dead years. Mm-hmm. Not that they did this with Mahomes, but in the sense of if they do a 10-year contract, he retires at year 6, you still have to pay him, but he's not on your roster and it hits your cap. And there's only so much cap that you can have each year. So what you can also do is say, I'm going to pay you 20 this year, 30 the next year, 40 the year after, and then the cap hit increases. But this year we're more likely to win next year we still have a good chance. Next year we'll have to reevaluate some other people, whatever. And I don't remember how they did it, but it did help a little bit. And hopefully that means they re-sign Snead for themselves, right? Not for us, because if they don't re-sign those people, we might win the Super Bowl. But Snead, Chris Jones, and then they need a wideout. So, but yeah, I thought they had redone it, but I'm not. I don't remember how it ended up going up. So, I mean, contracts are not really that interesting.
Well,
It just affects the teams incredibly more than what
and
we
some
care
are
about.
better at it than others. I know the Rams actually are ridiculous at manipulating the cap. But if we start another conversation, we're going to be here for 4 hours.
Yeah, some of that might be because they're pushing years out and they're going to be screwed.
Well, what's funny is this year is kind of supposed to be a rebuilding year for them for that reason. Is they just they were expected to be bad and then made the playoffs. I think that's genuinely pretty impressive of McVay. I think and also they're drafting because Puka and Cooper are really good receivers. They're very, very good, very shifty, very hard to handle. But we're at 2 hours 30 minutes. I don't even care if anybody watches it because it was so.
How did it do that?
I think I don't know. Can I try?
You don't
Sorcery.
get a thumbs up. Maybe it's Dad. I don't know.
Do you
Is Dad
weigh
watching?
as much as a duck? But yeah, we're at 2 hours 30 minutes. I loved it because listen, we missed a week and we had all of Super Bowl, and now kind of leading into our off season because there's a lot that's going to be going on, and which is hilarious because this is typically when I stop caring about football. But now there's going to be a lot to go over. Obviously, I got to get the freaking camera figured out. This is the most it's broken in a while. I think I have an idea of why though, but that's for another day. Thank you for coming on, Rob. That was fun. I think dangerously we could have kept going, which is a little alarming, unfortunately.
And Peyton's still sleeping, so we could still. But,
but we both have things we need to do. I do this in the middle of a day job. Thankfully, I have enough freedom. We'll see. I know, Rob, do you know when you hear back for the interview?
They said don't be surprised if I don't hear this week, and next week I'll hear something back. So
we might have to get creative,
we'll
which
see.
That's fine with me. We might need to take a break, which off-season might not be a bad idea to take a break as you kind of acclimate to being a working man again. I'm not saying you're not working, but a little 9 to 5, with
I'm not getting dressed and
drone.
going anywhere. Yeah, I'm in sweats. So
Well, you said 3 in the office, right?
yeah,
2 at
3 in the
home.
office, 2 at home.
So you're gonna have to
I
get
don't know if
dressed at
there's
some
meetings.
point.
I mean, just a shirt for the 2 days off.
I disappointed him by wearing pants today. So, yeah, honestly, like, again, to end on, congrats to the Chiefs. They absolutely earned that Super Bowl. And to give Nick Wright credit too, people incorrectly, which is funny, they incorrectly counted them out. Then everybody picked him for the Super Bowl. So that says a lot about Mahomes.
Do you know if the line moved? Do you know if the line moved at all?
No.
Would it finish
It got stuck at, I think 2.
Because I think it was either 2.5 or 3.5 to start, which is kind of funny because, I clicked on NBA.
I don't know what it ended at. Hold on. I found an article. Yeah, it ended at 2 points, which makes sense.
So yeah, it went down. People were like, "Oh, we got to get on that Chiefs money."
Yeah, that's what actually the Vegas was super, super afraid of a Niners win, which is hilarious. Anyway, I think I find betting fascinating, but I know literally nothing about it, and I constantly get it wrong.
Nothing.
So
I didn't know the -2.5 for
Neither
years.
did I.
I didn't know what that meant.
no, it still doesn't quite gel with my brain, but that's okay. Thank you for coming on. We're going to end here. Maybe we'll be back next week. We'll find out. Honestly, we always find room to talk.
We'll say we will be at this moment, and then we'll go from there.
And then we'll alert, our legions of fans on if things change. And hopefully I get technical difficulties figured out. Good freaking Lord. Anyway, have a good one, Rob. I'll talk to you hopefully later.
All right, bud.